Welcome to Chew the Fat. I am your host, Smoove, and today we have a special guest with us. We're going to talk about some things. I'm going to let him tell you all about it. I'd like to introduce Brandan Schrader. This is going to be a heavy episode and very useful. Let us know a little bit about yourself, Brandon.
Yeah, man. Thanks again for having me on. As mentioned, I'm Brandan Schrader. I'm the host of the Early Insight podcast, and um, I actually started this. I'm relatively new in this game, and I started this project about a year and some odd months ago after I realized that I was having a lot of the same conversations with some of the guys that were younger than me at work, and they had a lot of questions about things that naturally I had kind of lived through, whether it be professional development, personal development, um, questions about some of the entry level stuff on financing, investing, all the rest of it. And one of the things that kept coming up was dating. And I noticed that a lot of the issues that they were having were a lot of the ones that my friends and I used to have when we didn't know any better. And I started doing more research on it, and I realized, well, if I could kind of launch a podcast and kind of get this going, it'd be a good reference point for a lot of these cats that I work with. And so, in addition to what I do throughout the day, this kind of became a passion project of mine. So happy to be here.
Excellent. For those of who would love to know a little bit about your background, what would you include in that?
Oh, fun. So way back when my parents got married and then partied, and then 9 months later, oh, you mean more recently academically? Yeah. So I have a I have a background in psychology and research statistics. I won't go into too much detail about how that academic path unfolded, but I was able to really look at and really study the really development of human behavior as well as human psychology. And when you start diving into that, you'll start noticing a lot more about the world around you, not only from a personal standpoint, but also things that you can then take and apply into the business world too, which is what I did. And so much of my career has been based off of understanding the development of human behavior. I'm not a licensed psychologist or anything like that, but uh, understanding human behavior, and then also understanding qualitative and quantitative data, and then applying that for the betterment of businesses as well as increased revenue and predictability of various corporate and interpersonal dynamics of really more of a social nature. And so it ultimately came down to, how do I use what I know from a textbook to leverage that in a corporate world and make everybody as profitable as I possibly can so that all parties are leaving happy. And it just kind of bled into other areas of my life. So here we are.
Excellent. Okay. So we're going to get into the fun stuff. Why you got here? Because I know you're looking at the thumbnail, the title. You're saying, "Hey, what's up with this dating app stuff?" Right. So we're going to go into some serious data here. Right. We're going to take a deep dive. Right. There's the main culprit. Right. The most popular, which is Tinder. Right. So you are very familiar with Tinder. Um, I've done plenty of studies on Tinder, but I've been out of the market for quite a while, so I've never had the opportunity to actually download the app and experience it. But I've taken a lot of people's experiences into consideration, plus, studying the data as you have even more thoroughly than I did as far as Tinder is concerned. So I definitely wanted to get some insight. We're going to show you some of the data. We're going to go through a couple websites. We'll show you on the screen so you can have a good idea of how this works. We've had some fun with this. I've done some videos and different things, but this is a different approach that I'm very much looking forward to. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show the first part, and then I'll have Brandon do some explaining.
Awesome. Appreciate you. So, and yeah, as far as Tinder, if you haven't downloaded the app, I'm going to be honest with you, man. You're really not missing much. It's probably best described as a dumpster fire, and we're gonna get into kind of it really it's bad, man, and we're about to get into why. But before we start really looking into the statistics, obviously, our first article up to bat here is one that I used in a multi episode series that I put up on my podcast about dating. And this was one of the sites that I used. And this was probably one of the more eye opening. As we can see here, it says Tinder has stats of your swiping progress. Let's learn from other people's data. Yes, you can request your own data from Tinder, and it's pretty sobering. So, the very first thing that I want us to look at right here, if we scroll down a little bit on this article by medium.com, it says, what do Tinder stats look like? Before we really get into the numbers itself, we need to understand where they're coming from and really why they're important. So, the very first little blurb here, we of course have an intro of why people use dating apps and all the rest of it. So we'll go ahead and skip that a little bit because I mean it's no surprise why people use dating apps. Usually it's a little bit more convenient. Maybe they have social anxieties. But if we stop here at what do the Tinder stats look like, we can see how they're breaking these numbers down based on snapshots. So the data is as follows: we have age and gender, how long you've been on Tinder. I really don't like the grammar, spelling, punctuation on that, but that's neither here nor there. Somebody really
Yeah,
should
yeah.
do that in publishing. Long you've been on Tinder. Yeah, live long. All right. So number three, obviously, how many people did you swipe left and right on? Those are necessary for understanding the total number of profiles that you will have seen over the course of your entire tenureship on there. Number five, obviously, we have how many right swipes have led to chats, how many into conversations. So, what is your conversion rate? What is, and if you're in any kind of business at all, sales, whatever, you're understanding, you have a deep understanding of what those conversion numbers will look like and kind of where they come from. For everybody else, this kind of helps us explain the natural progression of things. So finally, down here, this was probably one of my more, I don't know, this was a point that gave me pause because I thought it was really hilarious, especially coming off of six, where it was like, well, did any of these dates become relationships or resulted in casual sex? Do you honestly think people are really going to report how many times they're having casual sex on Tinder? I mean, let's be real. Like, come on,
Men
come on.
might.
And
Women
numbers
certainly
don't.
won't.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So if there was a relationship which led to marriage, again, I don't know how many times you would actually say, yeah, I'm getting off Tinder because I met somebody and, now we're going off and getting married. I don't know how you're going to be able to track that last one, but here we are. So now, yeah, now that we,
Yeah,
because oh my gosh,
that
I'm still, I almost, my head almost imploded when I first saw these stats, and it almost haunts me again to have to go through them. But I was really excited to share them with you and your listeners today. So, but let's go ahead and check out this first example because I want to give you a stark comparison. We're not going to spend too much time on this because it's the second one that I want us to focus on more in depth, and then the first male example.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. So, example number one, we have a female who's 38 years old, and the author of the article was at least kind enough to say, hey, I found this on Reddit. She says that this lady is 38 years old and she spent over a year on the app, right? According to the Tinder data. And really, this is what her breakdown looks like. So, as you can see, she swiped on a total of 9,640 profiles. Keep in mind, that's left and right swipes. It's not saying how many, which way she really deviated until we get to the second
Uh-huh.
point. We see the breakdown of that. Where out of those 9,640, 3,703 were right swipes, while 5,937 were left. Out of those, obviously, she matched with 2,022 people. But out of those matches, she really only started a conversation with about 1,296 of them. Out of those 1,296, this is when the numbers start to drop off. She met 36 of them in real life. None resulted in a relationship or casual sex, or so she's reporting. Again, I don't know how forthcoming they're going to be on that last part because if you're going to announce to the entire internet and some anonymous Tinder worker that, yeah, I randomly hooked up with this person, but I'm never going to see him again. I don't think anybody really wants that circling around at the forefront of their mind because it's a little bit harder to deal with. Um, but this is interesting because this quick little blurb that they put down over underneath this first example was really a clarification as to why this number is important. And as we can see here, is that men will, on average, according to Tinder, and these breakdowns will swipe right on 40% of women on average, but this number is only 7% of women. So, to put it in simpler terms, if you line up 100 women, guys are picking maybe 40 of them. Whereas women, if you line up 100 dudes, they're only picking seven. So, yeah. So if we keep going
7%.
down, yeah, 7%. So we can see here too that the same source claims, English is my first language, I promise. The same source claims that women match with 33% of the people they swipe right on, while men match with only 2.5. So, excuse me, women match with 33%, while men are only really matching with about 2.5. So, keep that in mind as we go down a little bit further. So, we're going to get to female number 2. This is where the process starts to accelerate a little bit. She was on Tinder, as you can see here, for 100 days. She swiped right on, hope you're sitting down for this, 14,699 people.
That's too much time.
Bro,
That is
100,
ridiculous.
brother,
What what
100 days.
what
And you've
what are
seen
we doing?
what?
What are we
Your
doing?
15,000 profiles. Are you serious? This like you clearly don't have a job. But in her defense too, I believe the majority of, if I remember the demographics and the time frame of all these articles being published, in this young woman's defense, this did happen during the lockdowns.
COVID.
So
Yeah.
COVID, yeah.
Yes.
So you didn't have
Yeah.
a whole lot going
Okay.
on. So I might give you some leeway on that. But let's go ahead and keep going on this one. So on the second point, you can see that she swiped right on 409 users. But here's the thing: if we scroll up a little bit more, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting, because out of those 409 users on the second example of the female, she only had a 2.8 acceptance rate.
Wow.
2.8. So out of 409 users, like she was like, yeah, this 2.8%. I don't know how she got like 0.8. I don't know if she like went for somebody that was like, a midget, like 5'1" or something like that. I'm kidding, kidding. But short
It's
jokes
all right.
aside,
It's all right. It's all right. It's all
amen. That'll be the worst joke I put down range today, I promise. But here's okay, because I have to laugh about this because this just gets worse from here. So out of that 2.8 acceptance rate, she matched with 144 of them out of 409. That's 35%. Okay. All right. 84 out of 144 of those matches resulted in a chat. Now,
Dang.
I purposely had this next part hidden because I want you to take a guess as to how many of those chats she actually went through on a date with. Give me a number.
Hmm. I think it's bad, so I'm gonna say, what, 5 or less.
Yeah, you don't even need the full 5 digits on one hand to count them. It was
Wow.
3. 3.
Whoo. That
So you're telling
is.
me, let's keep this in mind. She swiped right on 409 users. She matched with 144 of them, and out of those 144, there were only 3 dates that she went on out of any of them.
Picky,
So
picky.
picky indeed. So if you didn't think that was bad enough, let's go ahead and check out the very first male that we have example in this. Now, this guy is 25 years old, as we can see right here,
In his prime.
and in his prime, right? He's starting to hit that age where, you're starting to figure out the world. You're really figuring out the plan that you're going to have in place for the next 10 years so that when you hit your 30s, like, dude, you're rocking and rolling on all cylinders, right? So I will tell you though too that this particular example, I think this article eloquently puts exactly what this perception of this young man was, or at least the experience, because I think heartbreaking was, quite frankly, a nice way of putting it. This guy had been on Tinder for 4 years, almost 4 years. And as we can see on the data, he swiped right on, get ready for this, 278,275 profiles. And of those, 276,379 of those were right swipes. If that second number sounds large, it's because it is. Because he had a 99.3 acceptance, or excuse me, he accepted 99.3% of the ladies that he was presented with while declining a meager 0.7%.
Today I
Whoa.
got time, cuz.
Yeah.
My man, my
What?
man straight up said, "Your qualifications are you have to have a pulse." I don't know what happened with that
Pretty
point
much.
7. Yeah, it's
Yeah. How bad could you have been? I mean,
oh, but it gets worse. It gets much worse for our boy. Only 492 out of those 276,000 plus were matches. That is less than 1%. In fact, I think if
wow.
we're being specific, I think that's about point 0.1. No, it's 1.9. Oh, it says it right there. Duh.
1-7. Yeah.
It's 0.17. It's not
It's
even.
crazy. Not even a
It's not
percent. Not even
even
a.
a 20th of a percent. Oh my god, he chatted with. Oh man, not even a half or a third of a percentage. This poor guy. He chatted with 245 ladies. Not a single date out of any
Yikes.
of that. He spent
Yikes.
1,410 days on Tinder and went through 278,000 plus women. That is
That's
an average of nearly
it's
200
bad.
swipes a day, 197 swipes a day. Bro, I
Yeah,
just,
he's got way too much time in his hands. He's really dedicated. It looks like he was desperate at this point. Desperate. Had to be desperate
I,
because
yeah,
just
I mean,
think about
some guys
how
are.
many you did over 250,000 swipes. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous. And you didn't get a single date. Um, I'm gonna go out on a whim here and probably say that he might need a little help with his profile. But
Yeah,
even so,
that also factors into it. Yeah.
he still should have had a date,
A.
at
Yeah,
least.
should. Should being the operative word off of the. Well, and oh my gosh, the article actually does pull that aside, and it's right here where it says how long do you need to go through 197 profiles per day, even if you're not really reading through the profiles. It's about 20 seconds is reasonable. That's over an hour each day every day for 4 years. If that guy had taken on a hobby, would have become a pro at this point.
Yeah, and then he probably would have got some dates.
That's what I'm saying. Listen, man, become an athlete. I'm telling you what. I mean, dude, it worked with Taylor Swift. I mean, the dude's jerseys jumped up however much this past weekend when people found out that T Swizzle is dating the new. What, I don't even know the dude's name. He's on
Oh,
the Chiefs,
Kelsey.
but apparently, what's
Yeah,
up?
yeah. Kelsey.
Yeah. Kelsey's jersey sales tripled in one weekend,
Yep.
estimatingly, just because it's T Swizzle fans, man. Telling you, telling you. Yeah, it just, and if you guys want to go look up this article, I mean, it's right up there on the top for y'all's quick reference. The fourth male, on the other hand, and this is important too. We're gonna end with this one. He had a completely different experience with this. This guy is from LA and of Asian descent. I'm not entirely sure why that is important. Maybe it's a preference out in California. Maybe it's a preference out in LA. I'm not too sure. The article didn't really go into it. I really wasn't hunting for race, gender, all the rest of it, ethnicity on that. I wanted the numbers. So he says that it's good advice because of He said he just wanted to share some insight on how Asians can still have some success in tougher markets with strong photo and bio optimization. I even said this in episode 6, is that when there was a group of women that were surveyed for dating apps and really wanted their experience on them. And one of the things that they consistently said was that if a guy's photos weren't interesting enough, it was a hard pass. Because here's the other
Yeah.
thing, too. You have to remember your photos aren't just being seen by her. She's got her besties probably to her left and to her right who are
And they have to
also judging
approve.
you on a date that
And women
they'll
are
never
communal
go on with
thinkers.
you. Exactly. So, and I've seen women do this on dating apps too. They'll look at a guy like this and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh," and her bestie will be like, "Oh my god, I love his hair, I love his outfit. You should totally swipe right." Has nothing to do
Yeah.
with the guy. Has not. She's never going to go on a date with this guy, but she's trying to matchmake for her friend. Which, okay, but so here are our numbers. Here are this dude's numbers because this is really what I want to focus on this one. He had been on Tinder for 68 days. If these four were playing golf, this man would win right now. He swiped right. Oh my god, 58,497 profiles in 68 days.
Sheesh.
Only 2,397 of those were right swipes, which is only about 4% compared to the average of 40. That man rejected almost every lady he saw, 96% of them to be exact. He matched with 426, just under 18%, or just under that 18% match rate. Still high compared to a 2.5. After chatting with 151 of them, he met with 12. Out of 12 dates, 8 resulted in casual sex. 2/3 of his dates, allegedly. So, my man wanted to inflate some numbers. Maybe he did catch a couple of bodies, whatever the case may be. The fact
Mm-hmm.
is that it was noted in this guy specifically, if you are going to venture into the realm of dating apps, after everything you know about them, after the statistical, just the abysmal statistics back behind them, specifically where guys are concerned, if you need to go in and do this, make sure that your photos are on point because
I,
it's
I
not
want to
just
give
for
some
you, it's for the value.
context. I want to give some context on why they highlighted this particular one once you're through with it. I know, but
Oh no, you're good. I mean, like I said, man, this is the numbers off this one. We can get into the flow chart and the actual like how much money like they're making off of this because that's dumbfounding as well. But
okay, I could tell you why they brought up um a person of Asian descent
mhm.
because statistically they are they do the worst as far as being selected. Asian men, unfortunately, this isn't anything that I think, but this is just statistical data. Um,
Mhm.
they don't perform well on dating apps in general. That's why they highlighted this one and they emphasized even if you happen to be Asian, you can do well. So that's what it is. And I'm glad to see that he was able to do that
Yeah.
well. But there is one factor to consider when you're looking at this particular example. I don't think he would fare as well outside of the Pacific, right? So, if you're on the
Yeah.
West Coast, right, there's a lot more. So you would fare
Mhm.
well there. I don't think that the numbers would be as great if he went every and if he were like say in Middle America. You know what I mean? However, even in the West Coast, they don't do as well. So he must have done some really good things with his profile,
Mhm.
which we'll get into later. But I just wanted people to have some context as to why they even brought that up.
That's a really good point. I remember reading that in the article, and I think I might have just glanced over it. And but yeah, no, that's I didn't know that. That's pretty good. It's interesting.
But this is I'm happy to see that he did well because just to kind of bang that theory down a bit over here.
Yeah. Yeah, so the biggest thing with this article was really just focusing in on those four examples from a statistical standpoint, especially if you want to look at an average distribution of data. One of the things for any of your listeners out there that have ever looked at statistics or research, taken any kind of mathematics course revolving around statistics, there's a theory of a bell curve, and unless they changed the the rule since last I was in school studying this stuff, which they might have. I don't know. You got all this curriculum changing going on these days. Who knows? But the number of samples that you need for an even distribution of data to make a generalization across this bell curve is roughly 30 points of data. You're going to have some that fall on, the outliers of the graph, which is about 5%, but the majority of your survey is going to fall right there in the middle, like, you know, plus or minus one type of deal. So that's usually where we get our generalizations from. I only throw
Okay.
that out because normally I wouldn't cite a source that's only got 4 examples, but I mean, considering the fact they took four, and they were like, "Oh, we'll use these." From everything else I've seen, it lines up pretty well with the the numerical patterns. Frankly, it's good stuff.
Awesome. So what's the let's see, the next one I think we can go into is the do you want to jump into the Earth web or
Yeah, let's go ahead and go over to the Earth web real quick because there was something really interesting about that I really wanted to point out, and it was that if anybody really has a mind to, especially any one of your listeners, EarthWeb does a really great job at breaking down even further the statistics back behind dating apps. And it doesn't limit itself to, oh, this is the number of men we have here. This is it. I mean, this goes down to age, location around the world. Like, it's anything you would want to know about this app on who uses it, it's here. So if we go over to EarthWeb real quick, um, this will actually pull up a couple of interesting little facts about us, which, funny enough, top apps in, yeah, we can go down to number 18 real quick. Just as a quick point of reference, this will be an interesting one.
you said
The
18?
top 18, yeah.
Oh,
Number
so yeah,
18, you have around 3.6 million Tinder downloads are recorded in a month. In a month. This is worldwide. Now, it says here a 12%
here we
growth in
are.
users during the last quarter of 2020. Again, if we think about the last quarter of 2020, what was going on in 2020?
Oh yeah, yep.
COVID scares, right?
The
So
lockdowns.
people were starting to stay. Yeah, people were starting to, just it was in full swing. Um, so this will give you an idea of how popular this was, and so what better time to actually gather data on your users than this right here. So one of the things I kind of jumped ahead and did a little bit of a spoiler on that, and so I'm sorry for that, and your people trying to follow along in numerical order at home. So my apologies, y'all. So here's the thing: the key Tinder statistics from 2023, because I had initially referenced a site that was a couple of years old. I believe the article was a couple of years old from um, the Medium. If I'm not mistaken, that article was produced in 2022. So I really wanted to give us a clearer understanding of what those numbers looked like in 2023. So near the top of the article, we can find that the key statistics for Tinder is that it's available in more than 190 countries. So for all
You
you
want to go back
passport,
up?
yeah. If you could scroll back up, because this might give hope to a couple of your listeners who might
I see
be
there's a
passport
map
bros.
here. You want to stop on that map?
Yeah, you could use that as a reference point. We'll get to that here in a second because that's actually this will give a visual for some of these numbers I'm about to put out there. So Tinder is available in 190 countries. 6.4 million downloads were recorded during January 2021. 75 million people use Tinder every single month. 7.8 million of those are from the US. 75.8% of Tinder users are male.
Yep.
24.2
Sausage fest.
Tinder, yep, are female. So what does that mean? Here's how this breaks down, which means, guys, more than likely you and your buddy are swiping right on the same girl,
Yep.
and probably neither one of you is going to get him. Get her. Maybe it is a him.
I
I can't
noticed
assume anymore.
I noticed
2023,
something
I don't know.
pretty interesting. Most of the states that countries that they are available in is pretty progressive, right? If you look at the map,
Mhm.
And you look at where they are. They're pretty progressive. Like
Yeah,
you don't see it,
exactly.
and yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
looking at right here.
yeah.
That's
It's funny you
crazy.
should bring that up too, because when I was looking through that initially, I noticed that, and I'm like, interesting, because yeah, you can use it in European countries, but then you think about how the interaction process and the dating world is kind of managed within the Eastern European. We still hear stories today where it's very traditional. It's very much a you have to have skill when talking to Eastern European women. You have to be able to carry on a conversation. You have to have something going for you. You have to be able to provide, you know, a solid life, because those women are looking for husbands. They are looking for families, because that is something that is still valued in their society. And it's
Yep.
not, hey, on to the next one. It's okay, this is an issue, and maybe this is an obstacle in our relationship. How do we fix it? It's a different mindset. So continuing to go through here, 24, yeah, 0.2% of Tinder users are female. We covered that. Only 10.3% of Tinder subscribers have access to Tinder Plus and Gold. If you don't know what that is, basically, you're paying to jump to the top of the pile. So basically, you're paying an app more money to get to the front of that line to maybe be swiped left or right on. There's no
So this would
guarantee.
be this would be similar to how you can boost one of your posts on Instagram or pay to advertise. So you're the algorithm will push you more because you pay the money. So you'll pop up in many more women's faces so they can swipe on you. You have more opportunities.
Yep. And what you'll find with a lot of these usability, at least the user interfaces, and the way a lot of these apps are set up, is that they will only one allow you to see so many profiles within a 24-hour period. But here's the catch: the second you reach that match limit or that swipe limit, what often happens, and I've noticed this not only in the female side of things, but also watching my buddies kind of do this, like when we're at a we're hanging out, we're grabbing something to eat, and they're just kind of casually swiping whatever else. I've kind of looked over and I've watched this. They'll hit the end of that swipe line, and then all of a sudden you have one of the most attractive women that you've seen in, let's say, 10 to 12 profiles pop up, and you're like, oh man, if I just had one more like, I'd have been able to. That's how they get you. That's how they
Wow.
acquire that monthly membership from you, by dangling that carrot in front of their face. And so it doesn't always work like that, but it has happened enough times that it makes you stop and go, hmm, there might be
Oh
something
yeah,
to it.
absolutely. And I would certainly say that the way that they design their app is more so based around profit margins than it is to
Oh,
actually
absolutely.
successfully connect people. Because ultimately, if they had an end game and they actually connected enough people to where we didn't need that to happen, they would go out of business. So it's
Yes,
not
that's exactly it.
designed to
That
work.
is exactly it. And I'm glad you said it, because if you didn't, I was going to. I was like, listen, if they really cared about their jobs, they'd be out of business. And I mean, they could solve this, this issue of, oh, well, we have this many people that are single, this is many that. And there's even a guy out there, I heard somebody say, I wouldn't be surprised to learn that they actually match you up with like the worst compatible people, just so you have to keep coming back to the app. And I'm like,
Oh yeah, I could absolutely see that happening. It's just the way
yeah,
of keeping yourself in business. That's just the nature of the game. I understand it, and it's unfortunate. And I don't think they're the only dating app that works like that. They don't want to put themselves out of business. It's understood. It's almost like I don't want to get too much into that, but it kind of works like the healthcare business where there's no money in a cure. There's only money in treatment.
yeah,
So yeah, I'm sure it's pretty much like that.
it's,
But hey,
it's bad.
I'm gonna jump back into it.
So a stat worse than the one back behind the Tinder Plus, Tinder Gold, and kind of the explanation about how that dynamic plays out, is that 30% of Tinder users, or excuse me, 30% of Tinder subscribers are married.
Wow. That
That's
is kind of scary in a
mhm.
way. Do you do you have an explanation for that, or what do you
Um,
think?
I I
Because you
do,
shouldn't
but
be
I would
on.
have to
Yeah,
come back
I
and we
want
would
to.
have to. I have an explanation for that, and I kind of dove into this on the very on I think it was like on the first or second installment series of episode 6 on my
Okay.
podcast. The short answer, the cliff notes is I think that the I think in the last 20 years, because you and I are around the same age, and you can attest to this too, is I think that the introduction of social media and playing the sideways comparison games of, well, he's got it better, she's got it better, the grass, looks greener on the other side. We've easily forgotten the age old adage that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it. And so instead of cultivating and nurturing a relationship, it's so much easier to put somebody through the divorce mill or call it quits or do whatever the case may be, because now the question isn't what do I do to make this marriage work, it's what do I want to do to make me happy.
Yeah.
And that's a
Yep.
terrible metric to try to shoot for, because if you're looking for that happiness, you're not going to find that in a marriage and relationship. That's not the point of a marriage to begin with. So I think that number right there has a lot more to do with a different matter entirely, which has more to do with the values instilled in the next generation, both men and women, about the importance of cultivating and powering through the tough times in a relationship to make it work. Divorce should not be in your vocabulary unless the relationship
Not
you are
even an
part of.
option.
It shouldn't be, unless it has something to do with immediate life threatening circumstances, you know,
Sure.
domestic abuse, of course, um, or there's a sudden change where one of the parties develops a actually I did see a statistic, and if I need to go dig through the weeds on this, I can. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I can find it if need be and pressed for it. Do you know the number one reason why men choose to divorce wives?
Hmm. No,
I
I
saw
know
this in a
why
quick
women
little
choose to
blip
divorce
on Instagram.
men, but I don't know the vice versa. Let me know. What do you got on that?
Seriously, give me one guess.
One guess.
Mhm. One
Abuse.
guess. What kind?
Um, let's go with physical.
Substance.
Substance abuse. Really?
Substance abuse. Narcotics. Now, again, I saw a quick blurb of this. I didn't actually get into the weeds to the level which I would have preferred to stand on that definitively, but I do know that there was an article out there that stated that one of the biggest reasons that men call it quits in a relationship is substance abuse, or there is something that has undermined the woman's ability to be a good mother. It's
Wow.
not how do I feel, it's I'm not attracted to her anymore. It's this woman is not fit to be the mother of my children anymore.
Wow. And that's definitely a suitable reason. It's not frivolous.
Yeah.
That's just it's no longer functional at that point. I
Yeah.
couldn't see anybody wanting to stay in a relationship with someone who's being if they're abusing any types of substances. You can't function. It's impossible to live with somebody like that. So that
and
makes
and
perfect
and heaven
sense.
forbid you leave it out around the kids too and have them get into it. Like that's another series of,
Exactly.
gosh. So
Whew.
after that 30% of Tinder subscribers being married, here's a poor use of time right here in my book. It says Tinder users spend an average of 35 minutes per day swiping on profiles.
35 minutes a day.
35 minutes a
Yikes.
day. 86. Well, and here's something interesting too. For if you have any listeners in India, 85% of women from India prefer education as the top priority in matchmaking, which makes sense.
Uh, I do kind of want to touch on that for a second,
Yeah,
just
go ahead.
because hey, we got to keep it real on this one. They understand. They understand the assignment, right? As far as in the United States, who makes the most money, right? As
Mhm.
far as who understands family, they got it. As far as the lowest rates of divorce, they're up there. right? So they understand family, they support each other. There's so many reasons why it work. They understand duty, and
Yeah.
uh, that's why they're successful.
Yep.
So, and I think a lot of it starts with building a strong family, which will
Mhm.
build a strong community, which will build a strong society. And
Absolutely.
they are at least gotten to the point where they have a very strong community. The other members of society won't cooperate, but yeah, they absolutely understand that part. So, family is important, and that's why the stats are what they are. They understand
Yeah.
that.
It's yeah, there's a lot to be said about the cultural influence and the state of the culture where it comes down to understanding the importance of marriage and everything that goes into it. I think a lot of people, and I kind of touched on this earlier, is that I think a lot of people like the idea of a wedding, but they don't
Yeah,
fully grasp the concept of a marriage.
that's
And
absolutely true.
there's a difference between actually having like healthy constructive criticism and obstacles that you have to overcome. But I've said this for at least the last 7 or 8 years offline, but even before the podcast, was that you don't go into a relationship with the end goal of, oh, this is going to complete my happiness. No, 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 no. You shouldn't even be going into a dating situation looking for someone else to complete that happiness. Because again, if you're shooting for that target, happiness is completely relative based on your current state of being and your current surroundings. That's a fleeting emotion. Dr. Jordan Peterson even said as much. In fact, he was one of the ones that actually started backing it up from 20 years of clinical psychology. Like, so I mean, what are you gonna argue with the man that's got 20 years of experience saying you shouldn't be looking at happiness to go into a relationship? Like, it should be based on common values, principles, shared traditions, and the desire to want to help each other grow, strengthen, and then provide an environment in which children can properly be raised, learn, flourish, and become successful contributing members of society later on down the road. But it's
I would
all
never
about
argue with Jordan B. Peterson.
that man is a lot smarter than me. And anytime I listen to him or Lex Friedman, I'm consistently reminded of how dumb I am. So yeah. Um, but I definitely think that in that realm, if we were to switch our focus back to that, it would go much less from the, we need to have a decrease in the amount of people that are looking to get into marriages because the, oh, I need to post for Instagram, or I want to do the clout chasing, or I want to be happier. It's a lifelong thing, man. It's a lifelong thing. Um, Everybody says they want their ride or die, but it apparently 30% of people on Tinder are, you know, not really feeling it when rubber meets the road. So, um, oh my goodness, a lot of these in this article are particular, like the origins of Tinder and everything else. We won't get into that. One of the things that I did want to point out was that there are a couple of other charts down here that'll tell you the percentage of relationships and matches that will lead to marriages, everything else. That's not necessarily what I want to focus too much on. Number 14. This one's interesting. Based on the 2021 Morgan Stanley stats, Tinder is worth 42 billion with a B.
Yikes.
During
Yikes.
2014,
42.
the multi-industry firm IAC bought more shares of Tinder, which resulted in the increase of its value by several billion. Bank of America Merrill Lynch estimated Tinder at 1.35 billion with $27 per subscriber based on user count estimated at 50 million. Around a half a trillion Tinder users have free accounts, and the in-app purchases that Tinder implemented paved the way for the site's monetization. The 2019 Cheddar statistics valued, that's actually a really cool name. Kind of cheesy, but eh. Anyway, uh, sorry. The 2019 Cheddar statistics valued Tinder app at $10 billion. So again,
Yikes.
do they really have your best interest at heart when it comes to the longevity of your potential relationship or even
Yeah.
finding your true love of heart?
So with we don't know if they're going to make money whether it works or not, but we do know that they're going to make money if it does not work.
Can you remind me again the definition of insanity? I seem to have forgotten it reading this. Do you
Um, yeah, doing performing the same action over and over and expecting a different result. That's the gist
That's
of
right.
it.
Man, can't believe I forgot that. That's wild, man. So this is kind of interesting because when we start to look at the when we really start to look at this is what I got excited about, and this is why I sent this to you. Number 15. So if we scroll down a little bit, this is the very next point because 14 ties perfectly into 15. Not too far down because I want you. Ooh,
Yeah,
this
we're
is
right here
where.
at the top of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So here's the good thing about it. The merging occurred in 2017 between Tinder and Match Group, another dating site. So one bought out
Oh,
the
I
other. It
remember those
sounds like.
guys.
Yeah. Their combined market share grew from 8.34 billion to 44.59 billion. Somebody's
Yikes.
getting paid. Morgan Stanley valuation of 2021 was based on the 40x EBITDA, just like Bumble, a similar dating app, almost identical dating app. In 2019, Tinder earned 1.2 billion and 1.4 billion in 2020. Again, these numbers might be inflated a little bit because if we look at what was going on in 2019 and 2020, more and more people were staying home due to the bug. And so, you know, got to do something. So, Tinder made 1.2 billion in 2020, by which Tinder became the source of half the revenue generated for the Match Group. This is where it gets fun. So I'm going to, before we scroll down too much, if I were to tell you who had the most overall revenue between or among, let's say, I'm going to put four companies downrange to you: Netflix, YouTube, TikTok, and Tinder. And I told you to pick one that had the highest overall revenue, which one of those four would you pick?
I think most people would pick Netflix.
Netflix? That's a safe bet. Yeah. Probably Netflix or YouTube. TikTok, I think would probably be getting up there because I mean, I'm old school, man. I always prefer Vine. I always will. But let's be real, TikTok
Yeah.
found a way to monetize itself, and it just is what it is, man. Now, here's the thing. So keep that in mind. You said Netflix.
Yeah, or
Scroll down.
even YouTube. There's so much. There's so much there.
Yeah,
Hey, sheesh.
stop right there.
Oh man,
Who's that number one spot?
it looks like Tinder is the overall number one. How about that? Go Tinder.
I'm telling you what, and the fact that you're beating out YouTube with all of its ad revenue, with all of its ad generation, everything, TikTok for all of the advertisements, for all of the influencers that we now have to suffer through, for better or for worse. Um, Disney Plus. The rest of these I had barely heard of. Pandora I didn't really hear of since like high school because I know Spotify came along and then you had Apple Music and Pandora just kind of fell by the wayside. I hear they're doing good things though. But this is mind blowing. Look at this. App Store revenue. YouTube beats out Tinder. I don't have the numbers on hand, but if I had to take a guess, it'd probably be because you want to pay for premium so you don't have to sit through ads.
Yeah.
Yes. TikTok makes a little bit more sense because you have the influencers. Oh, you should go on a Amazon, buy this thing. Not ripping it. I've seen some cool things people have sent me from TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. I can't stand the app, but I've had people send me screen recordings of like really cool cooking stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I'd buy that. So that makes sense. But number three is Tinder, and it's still beating out Netflix.
Netflix.
They should just partner up with the number of times people are Netflix and then chilling, but you know, it is what it is. And then Google Play revenue for the Android users. Google One, of course, it makes sense, but then Tinder is firmly planted.
Only because they get a piece of everything, right?
Oh
Only
yeah,
because they get a piece of everything.
absolutely, and it makes sense when you break it down and look at it that way. kind of surprised Pandora is higher up on that list too. I was really shocked when I was looking through that. I was like, oh, okay. So that's interesting. Um, a little bit of hope on 16 if you want to quickly touch on that. I won't spend too much time there, but a little fun fact on that. Number 16, 40% of divorced, widowed, or single Tinder users found companions during the COVID-19 pandemic. It doesn't specify in that little blurb, but my hope is that these weren't the people that were trying to kiss each other with masks on, because that was stupid. Um, God, I saw that story. I was like, yeah, you can't be this
Yeah,
dumb.
yeah. That was bad.
Here is the last thing I'm going to touch on in this one is number 17. The average Tinder user opens the app 11 times a day.
This is really bad.
And number 18 will actually give you the breakdown of the top apps used. Period. Tinder, Netflix, Tencent Video, IQI is I don't know what that is. YouTube, Pandora, Line, and then the list goes on. And Google One is actually at the bottom of that list.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it just continues to break down beyond that. And
This is
it just
crazy.
yeah, it so here's something else. I know that I said that I was going to touch on one last thing and we're going to move on from this article, but I I did specify this in episode 6 that I had published, and I think it bears repeating for your audience. If you look at number 20, 63% of male Tinder users message their companion within 5 minutes. But then we
Within
think back
five
on the
minutes.
numbers that we just saw in that previous article to where you're getting maybe 3 messages, maybe
Wow.
one. That one dude didn't even have a date out of how many women he swiped right on, and that one lady only had 3 dates out of the 122 that she had selected out of the 409.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. this is this is crazy. This
It
is
gets a lot more
staggering, man.
depressing too, especially in 21 when it gives the breakdown of oh, and this chart too is actually really interesting. This recent statistics will show that only 18% of women will reply to messages in the first 5 minutes.
Wow. Wow.
For more sobering,
Wow.
6.03 million paid Tinder subscribers in the world. That's total. So you have so math time, boys and girls. Tinder Plus costs $8.99 for people 30 and under,
Wow.
and then $19.99 for the rest of the users. Now I don't know this for a fact because I haven't seen this, but my guess would be on that. The reason why it's cheaper or it's more expensive, I should say, for the 30 plus crowd is because they understand that they're more established in their careers and they have more resources to go through than the 20-year-old who may be starting off his career on average.
I guess they figure that people are willing to pay. That's horrible, though.
Yeah. 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 It offers various discounts while purchasing, annual or biannual subscriptions, based on your region. So, I mean, at least they're giving you a tax break. I mean, or at least they're giving you a discount. But I mean, you're already
Sheesh.
at that point. Yeah, gosh. Tinder Plus offers an ad-free portal where people can get unlimited swipes. Because I know the best advertisements I've ever seen have been from Tinder. No. Um, yeah, the Tinder Passport feature allows people to set a specific area to connect with people from that location. So, for you passport bros out there, if you choose to do this, this may be a way to go. Although I wouldn't recommend it. So Tinder Gold was introduced in 2017. Yeah, in 2017 with a premium monthly cost of $14.99 for people under age 30 and $29.99 for the rest of us. So basically, gold option is like you get a fast pass for the fast pass that you paid for at Disneyland that's costing you a total of $220 now to skip the line that you should have been waiting in to stand in another line full of people who are getting ahead of the line that they didn't want to wait. So yeah. Oh my gosh, this is not just. this this makes me just stumble over my words. I can't with these numbers. Like I've seen them, I've looked at them, I reported on them, and even seeing them again, dude. Like I just the most
Yeah,
expensive
this is
tier up right there. The most expensive tier in Tinder is the Tinder Platinum, which comes with a 17.99 per month premium. Are you, bro? 39.99 for
wow.
everybody 30 and older. 40 bucks.
$40 a month.
40 bucks a month. But here's the thing. That's tacked on to what they don't tell you is that by the time you get to when you keep upgrading services, by the time you get to that 39.99, it's a lot more than that you've dropped in one sitting. It, and then if you scroll down, Tinder premium users can check the profiles visited in the past week. So if you scroll down, obviously you're able to see who's visiting your profile a lot more. So you get more access to the raw data to actually see how successful or how unsuccessful you're being based on the amount of money that you pay. So much like the algorithms that we see in YouTube and everything else, if your stuff is free, brother, you could probably have the best photos in the world. You're getting maybe pushed to the middle or the top of the free subscribers, and that's still back behind all the guys who are paying through the nose just to be first in line to get rejected because I don't like his
exactly.
parents. Oh, he's 6 foot.
It
He's 5'10". I can't do that. Chick, you're
Yep.
5'1". You could wear your tallest heels, stand on a step ladder. You're still not going to be able to meet eye to eye with him. Like, what does it matter to you? I want D1 athletes. No, you don't. Shut up. Well, it's a protection thing. No, because God made Smith and Wesson. So it's, the guy can carry a gun. What's your argument? Let's go. I just, oh my gosh. I'm gonna start it. This
yeah,
is gonna go from a
and
stat to a roast session if we're not careful. So, but the article continues on like that, and it just draws more and more of a stark comparison. Number 23 will actually give you a breakdown of demographics of age groups and what their preference of apps are. So if you are looking to perhaps meet with someone who is of a certain age bracket, this will actually give you a better breakdown of, who's who and what's what. And then if you scroll down a little bit more, you'd be able to see the exact breakdown of what I sent you there. So we can see that almost 80% of users on Tinder are somewhere between the ages of 18 and 24. That's assuming they meet the age requirement. They're not lying on the get-go. And you don't see that anywhere else. So
nope.
consider this. That's your biggest demographic on Tinder is 18 to 24. And then even still, you almost hold twice over Bumble, the 25 to 34 year olds. Brother, my
Sheesh.
question to you is this. What was that number that was put out recently? How many men between the ages of 18 and 30 are single and haven't had sex in the last year? Do you remember that number?
Yeah, it's about 30% of men.
30%. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they get nothing. They're getting
Look at
nothing,
this.
nothing,
You have the
nothing,
majority of that
nothing.
that entire demographic base is right here in Tinder. It's right there in 4K.
Whew. Yeah, this is disturbing. Yeah, this is disturbing.
It's
So it's,
just
it's, it's definitely extremely difficult for
now, if you're
for
going to plan
men.
it properly, the next one will tell you that 1.5 million Tinder users go on a date on weekends, which I mean, cool. You don't really have a whole lot going on anyway if you're trapped inside, but Tinder will cross 400,000 followers on Instagram by 2023.
Wow.
84% better match success for people who share their Spotify listening list in Tinder.
This is bad.
Yeah,
This is really
72% of
bad.
Tinder apps from Android devices are owned by men.
Wow.
And we already know that there is a stigma that women will reject guys based on the color of their text bubble.
Absolutely. There's no question about it. They think you're poor, or
Exactly.
in all honesty, I think they like to be able to track you, to hit you on FaceTime, see you whenever they want, see if you get red receipts and different things like that. And approximately 70% of women in the U.S. own an iPhone.
Yeah. Which is
So
kind of funny because it's like, oh, well, he's poor. Well, at a certain point, like, yeah, they were cheaper. But here's the thing: if you really look at the specs, they're much more expensive than Apple. And from a processing standpoint, from a software and hardware standpoint, they're much better designed.
oh,
And
absolutely. I would never use iOS just because of the limitations. I can do so many things with my phone and performance wise. They just now came out with USB C. They've literally been nickeling and diming iOS users so they can charge you more, and
Mhm.
your port is actually slower and less
Mhm.
convenient. The European Union your European Union forced them to do it, and that's the only
Yeah,
reason why.
that's because they got popped for somebody found out, or they had released, or it was leaked, or it was somehow proven that after an update, Apple was purposely slowing down their old phones so people had to go off and upgrade. And then even then, they were nickel and diming them. They said, "Oh yeah, well for environmental reasons, we're going to take the charger cable and the extra plastic out of the box. You can get that separately." They don't care about the environment because if they did, they'd be shutting down their entire store because the cobalt mines and the lithium mines go to help the manufacturing process of their phones. So don't tell me it's about the environment when in actuality, you just want to make more money off your users because
If,
you can.
think about this. First of all, they're only sending you a USB 2 port, even in the iPhone 15. So you still can't
Mhm.
process data speeds faster. It still only goes up to 20 watts, right? So
Yeah.
that's trash. They have Android phones doing 120 watts, right? Your average Samsung can do 45 to 50, right? With the fast charger. So that's not it. And then as far as the environment, wouldn't it cost more on just as a consumer, and wouldn't it be worse for the environment for them to have to ship you out a separate charging box so you can get a good speed that's a whole shipping, so somebody has to drive there with gas, new packaging, everything, versus just including it in the box.
My
So
brother in Christ, you are
that
bringing
all
too much
trash.
sense to this conversation. I'm sorry. It just I mean, but you're right though, and you're absolutely right. With all these extra steps, you can't claim to be an advocate and a fighter for the environment when you're sitting there nickel and diming your customer base because it's like, oh, or Apple, we can get away with it. It's like, yeah, you can. I mean, and I'm going to be real with you. Like, I have an iPhone just because it syncs up with the stuff that I do for the podcast and everything else, and ease of accessibility and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, but to be honest with you, like I'm rolling with an 11. And the only reason I had the 11 was because my 6 broke down. And the only reason I had the 6 several years ago was because my iPhone 4 stopped holding a charge after 4 years. Like,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
Take care of your toys, they'll take care of you. Write that
That's crazy, but yeah, you absolutely will be excluded from and there's been, I know a lot of guys who would get to the point where they're going to close on a cold approach, and they pull out their Android, and the female will literally tell them, "Oh no, I can't talk to you. Why not? You have an Android. Yeah, it's not going to work." And I'm like, "What? Is that what we've
What?
come to?"
Here's the thing.
That's what
Here's the
we've
thing.
come
I
to.
guarantee you, you tell that chick, "Hey, go get your bestie. You go line up. I'll take a photo of you guys with the iPhone, and I'll take one of your Android. If my photo comes out better, you have to give me your number." Oh my god. Okay. Done,
There you go.
gents. You're winning that
I'm gonna.
contest.
Hey, I'm using that. Just kidding. Wow.
So, oh yeah, no, and it just like I said, if your users want to, your users, I'm sorry, if your listeners, sorry y'all, if your listeners want to go off and check out more of these statistics, you know, you guys, you guys are more than welcome to go and down. Oh my god, I just now saw this. I forgot this was part of this article. Do you want to see what percentage of men have actually had one night stands on that app, reportedly?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay, so you got to scroll past number 30, or it's actually in 30, but
In
number
30.
30 in this article, and I promise y'all this will be the last one that we look at. Number 30, around 46% of Tinder usage time, men swipe right. Men are interested in physical appearance, duh, and hence have more tendency to swipe the profiles whenever they see a perfect user. On the other hand, women are pickier. That's a surprise. Yeah, exactly. As I heavy side eye the freaking camera and take more time to evaluate the profile, especially if their besties are sitting to the left or right of them. Obviously, that's not written in the article. I'm just interjecting that. Fight me. It doesn't make it any less true. I'm sorry. They check education as the first choice, followed by physical appearance, hobbies, and so on. I actually did a breakdown of the things that women look at on dating profiles in episode 6, and one of the things was education. They wanted a job title. They wanted the sex appeal that came with, oh, my boyfriend's an attorney associate or a legal associate, or he's going to make partner in like 10 years. What does your boyfriend do? Oh, he's a plumber. Or he owns his own HVAC or trash company. Oh, it doesn't sound as appealing, but
Nope.
here's the funny thing. The lawyer's pulling down 50K in his early part of his career. The guy who owns a trash business is clearing 6 figures easy and doesn't have student loans. Not ripping on lawyers, one of my best friends is. But, to your female listeners out there, job doesn't
Yes.
necessarily, you can have resources, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's like, oh, he's a lawyer. Okay, cool. Your job title is not going to keep the lights on. Like, once he gets established in his career, absolutely. But like, blue
Let
collar
me
is the way
ask
to
you:
go, ladies. I'm telling you.
Is
What's
that
up?
something that's listed? Is that something that you can list on Tinder?
I
Your
think
income?
I don't know about income. I think that they probably pull that number from looking at whatever job you post that you have.
Okay.
So they'll do
Okay.
like the
Okay. Okay.
average.
So
I know
they
that
do an
I've heard
average
of
on it.
apps. Yeah, I've heard of apps like the League where you actually have to make a certain amount before they'll even let you use the app. And it's more for like a premium and like elite uh, dating service. So they're like, oh, well, you want to date somebody in your league, you're on your level. I'm like, well, actually, you don't even need a dating app for that because the guys who are already doing that carry themselves in such a manner where they're going to garner females' attention, regardless of whether they're on an app or not. They don't need it.
Yeah.
So,
You know what though? There are some guys who have a lot of money, but
yeah,
they don't have the first clue about how to obtain or certainly retain women, right? So
yeah,
in those cases, I think you end up finding a lot of sugar daddies and sugar babies, honestly, um, which they have a specific app for that too. But
yeah.
yeah, once you start to if you start putting those type of
What's the
parameters where
name of
you
this
don't
app?
even
That way I can
accept
avoid
women.
it.
Oh, I forgot what it was, but it's definitely for wait, what's the I can't damn I
Wait,
can't
do
think
you
of it. It's
actually have
not
a
it's
name,
not
dude? I was just kidding. I don't actually need it. Like,
no, it's real. It's real. It's real. I can't think of it right now, but it's real. There is one where you can go ahead and find sugar babies and stuff where yeah, and some men do pay for women to do nothing. They don't have to do anything, just exist. And it's that easy for women sometimes. And that's why I say it's so much harder as a guy. And it's baffling because there are actually more women in this country and around the world, right? We're not outnumbered like crazy, but enough for there to be at
I think
least
it's like a
for most men.
52-49 split, maybe. I think I
Yeah,
might be
I
I,
know.
I might be off on that number.
Yeah, yeah. It's close to that. It's close to that. So, but we are outnumbered
No,
by at least a little bit, right?
50,
So
51-49. I'm sorry. 40, 42 or 49-52 would put you at about 102. My bad. So,
Yeah.
11.
So,
It would put you at
but
101, not 102. God. Okay.
but
Sorry.
regardless of what, let's just say even
Yeah.
if it were even, it wouldn't make sense. But the fact that we are outnumbered by women, right? Whether it be 2%, 4%, whatever, it still should give men the opportunity to be able to obtain a woman. But it's not. When you look at how staggering these percentages that we just went over are, it's ridiculous because it just shows you how picky women are. And then the other thing that you have to highlight is they're with some dudes, but guess what? They're all Eskimo sisters. There are
Eskimo
literally
sisters.
yeah, that means they're sharing the same dude.
Okay. I've never heard that. That's
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
S- yeah, so there's 10 to 20% of dudes. It ranks top 5% will have their pick of the litter, right? They will have no problem getting any woman. The dudes who
Yeah.
are able to have charisma and the look and money, right? It's just it's a wrap. It's a wrap. Those guys are going to be able to pick whatever they want. You get into that top 10%, those guys they'll have good money, enough way better than the females that are searching for them. They'll have a good enough look. And then it gets
Yeah.
worse. After you get that past that 20 percentile, it's really a struggle. You have to try a lot harder. You have to build your
Yeah.
profile so much more and everything. And I'm going to get into a lot of that later on with you, but
Yeah.
I want you to be able to cover everything you got going on right now.
I got a challenge for you real quick. I'm not going to get into it, but I want you to go look at something.
Okay.
When when you start doing research on this, I want you to go look at the preferences that women have on men on their height, because what you'll notice is that for 6 foot and above, they'll start doing this. In fact, it got to be so outrageous where women were looking for guys that were like six 6'9" and like 7'2" in some cases, and companies like Bumble actually had to put a restriction on how high or how tall the guy could go, or how tall the guy was. So when they went in to go look at a guy's height, what you'll notice is that search and preference will go up as the guy's height
Mm-hmm.
climbs. So then once you get
Yep.
to about 5'11", 5'10", that number plummets.
Yeah.
Just like it's like that one episode of SpongeBob where they're taking the bus too far and it goes from like bikini bottom just poof, like that's exactly what that number does. And it's a prime example of it. And it's 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 disqualifying men in some cases for all the wrong reasons. If the woman is like 5'10", I get it. You know, you want to be able to exist in your feminine, you want to have the heels, that's
Sure.
fine. The ones that
But
I
most
take
women
issue
aren't.
with, yeah, exactly. If you're 5'1" and you're telling me I want a guy who's 6 foot, don't talk to me if fives in your height. And you're like, it's like, why don't you, what, with all that attitude, how about you chill out before I put you on the top shelf and not take you down until you calm out, chill. Like, it's just, come on, man.
it's
What
it's
are you
it's
doing?
bad. It's bad, and it's I don't know if it's. I think it's here to stay, right? That 6 foot thing.
I think so.
And if you ever went into the delusional calculator, you
Yes, that
understand.
thing.
I'm sure you've seen the delusional calculator,
Oh
right?
yeah. The Delulu calculator. Oh yes. Oh yes. And how many cat
Uh,
bags you're gonna have, or how many cats you're gonna end up with. Oh yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because the percentage of men that are over 6 feet, what is it about? Like
I think
fourteen
it's like,
percent or
yeah, yeah.
lower, right? And then once you pass like 6'2", it starts to drop off like crazy, right?
Do you actually
Six
know the
two,
average height of men in the US?
uh, 5'9".
Yeah. 5'9", 5'10", roughly. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
so these females are out here thinking, oh yeah, 6 is the average. No, it's not.
no, it's not. Nowhere near. Nowhere near. And that's the whole thing. And if let's for a female to actually think that, that is absolutely deluded, right? Because listen, when you're talking, if you're just looking at men, you'll see that most men aren't 6 feet tall. But that goes to show you that when men say most men are invisible, that's a reality. They don't
Yeah.
even see these dudes as men, right? They're
Yeah.
not even anything that they even pay attention to. It's like you're not even there. That's the thing. For you to actually say that as a woman, that you think the average height is 6 feet, that means you don't see most of the men around you.
No, it's the same thing some of these guys do on some of these other channels where some of these pickup artists and these quote unquote dating coaches, I'll call them, they they ask these women in some of the more, how shall we say, expensive areas for cost of living, what do you think the average salary is for a guy? And they'll
Oh
go
yeah.
off of the average salary for the type of men that they are accustomed to dating. The same
Yep.
men that have time and time and time and time and time again burned every bridge they've tried to construct with them and screwed these women over to such a point where they're just like, well, guys are trash. And I'm vehemently against that that phrase. Like, I cannot stand that. And I've gotten to a point almost, I've had to watch my mouth a couple of times because it's like I say it to the wrong woman and I'll get in trouble.
Yeah,
But
oh yeah, you will.
in general, what I have started to call them out on, I'm like, you can't really say all guys are trash. That's like going into a KFC and then getting on to them about not having a gourmet salad. Like, KFC isn't trash when you're the one selecting which menu you look at. So, like, who's really a
Yeah.
bad picker? Is it
And what they have to
them to you, or
understand
is
is
it you?
that, all right, so one of the main things they have to understand is that us as men, we've actually created uh, the market, right? Where women behave in a certain way because we've allowed it, we've promoted it, right? When women exhibit bad behavior on social media, we've actually contributed to the algorithm. We've liked it.
Yeah,
We throw the eggplant emoji, everything else to show that we appreciate it, right? That's what we look for. And
yeah,
then when these women behave like this, if we would have ignored them, they would stop, but we don't, right? We
yeah,
never stop it. Now, women are doing something similar with men. They are all going after the same types of men and increasing their options. So if this guy has so many options, he's not really going to care. If just
yeah,
imagine if you have a bunch of dates, you're on Tinder, you're a guy, right? You get 20 dates. You're probably going to explore all 20 of them, or at least 15, depending on how picky you are. But you're going to mess with most of those women. And because there's so many women, you can't actually devote time that you should to one of them. So you're going to
yeah,
say, okay, I'll mess with this one, and then I'll discard it, and I'll mess with this one because they're all coming to you. They're coming in droves to the
mhm,
same types of guys. So they're creating this type of behavior. Whereas if you were to deal with an average guy,
mhm,
he would appreciate you more because he doesn't have that many opportunities, right? He can offer you some of the
yeah,
same things. He's probably working, trying to get his life together. He might not look the best, but he might look average, right? But
yeah,
most women and men fall within average. And we don't understand that.
yeah,
Most men and women both fall in average. But it's about being self aware, but it's hard to be self aware when, women are told, oh, we're all tens, we're all tens, we're all tens, we're all tens, right? So
yeah,
now you think you can get your 10, but then these guys act like a-holes because they have so many opportunities because all of you are chasing the same ones. And then you wonder why you get treated that way.
yeah. It's and that was the thing too. I mentioned that exact thing in episode 6, where I was like, you have to understand that at a certain point, if you look at the demographics again, like, what's the percentage of what's the percentage of Tinder users that are actually male compared to female? We just looked at that number. Like, dude, it's no brainer. It's a matter of ratios, so it
Oh,
makes
yeah.
sense. And the thing is that, if you really want to go after these top tier guys, if you will, I refuse to use the term alpha men, because I think it's a marketing buzzword, and
Yeah.
I've never really subscribed to it. Like, you think about when we were younger and we heard somebody say, "Oh, I'm an alpha man." What did you think about that guy? Do you think he was actually about his game, or you think he was full of himself? Like,
I thought it
it's
was
the
just,
same thing.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Men who
Listen
are
to the
actually
hair.
alpha males don't ever have to say it.
Exactly. Exactly. So what defines these guys, right? because you'll hear about this in the community all the time, and a lot of these other guys, these dating coaches, these alpha, whatever you want to call them, if you listen to the characteristics that they attribute to these alpha men, they were just men 20 years ago. They were just men 30 years ago. What you've
Yeah.
just described was the average American male providing for his family and making a decent living to try to make a name for himself and carve out a little piece of this earth for himself and his family. That was the norm 20, 30 years ago. The only thing that changed was the marketing techniques. That's really it.
Yeah. No, that's real. That's real. All right. I do want to jump into I want to jump into what we got going on over here. Um are you good with this one or you want to keep going down here?
Yeah, so I let's have a look at this real quick because I do want to look at these two bar graphs real quick. So this first one real quick is looks do matter to men. Photos are the most important feature of a dating app profile. Yeah, I mean, I don't think really anybody's going to argue with that, especially when we're seeing this layout here. So the photo, this is looking at if we read the quick, excuse me, if we reference the quick description up there. I'm also finding allergies too, so if I'm coughing up, you have to be patient with me.
No, that's all right.
But
That's
on
all
the
right.
other hand, women are pickier to take more time to evaluate the profile. They
Over
check
here.
education as the first choice, followed by physical appearance, hobbies, and so on. We covered that just a moment ago. But if we look down at this graph, we can see that photos are something that men report having a little bit more of an interest in. They pay attention to it, right? So then males will actually look at, okay, well, do we have friends in common, all the rest of it. I don't want to spend too much time on that because there are other articles out there that break this down much more efficiently and explain the idea of photos and evaluation thereof between the sexes. I'm not going to do that. The graph
Got it.
underneath that though is a little bit more interesting. Men have had more dating app one night stands. So obviously we can see the blue is the male, the green are the female. There seems to be one number that is standing out head and shoulders above the rest, and it's that second to last category on the right. And it says this is obviously a breakdown of the percentage of users compared to the number of one night stands they've had on matching. So if you look at that second to last bar graph on the far right, we see that 40.6, oh my gosh, 40.6% of men have reported that they have not had a one night stand, compared to 65.3% of women said that they have not had a one night stand from Tinder. Now, maybe this is accurate, maybe this isn't. Again, this number is coming from a self reporting system because despite these numbers, Tinder does not have a function on the app where it can determine if and when you are having sex with a match. You have to report that. I know our phones listen to a lot these days, and it's not one of them, or at least we should hope it's not. So, but for conversation's sake, let's say that this graph is accurate and that the self reporting was in fact valid. What this is saying is that you have, out of just the guys total saying, yeah, I've had a one night stand, or I've not. Look at how those numbers are dispersed across the board. Yes, men typically are having more one night stands with the dates than women are. However, the question becomes, who's the gatekeeper to sex? Like ultimately in a
Women.
relationship, who,
Women.
right? So when we have this conversation, and again, to your female listeners out there, I'm not being disrespectful with this, but this is meant to be a thought exercise, not THOT, like thought, like THO.
Yeah, yeah.
Word pun. Anyway, so this is meant to be a thought exercise. If women are if women are the gatekeepers to sex, as many have claimed that you are, right? Then how then does the tone of the conversation need to be carried out when we discuss why we have rampant hookup culture in the West?
Hmm.
So one of two things is happening. Either, well, he told me certain things. Okay. So you either need to get better at reading BS, or you need to revert back to some type of value system. Or, and this might be a little bit more radical for some of you out there, maybe don't jump into bed with a guy until you got a rock on your finger or you've already walked down the aisle.
Hmm.
I mean, it's just a thought. And with guys, and before any of you hit me up on Instagram, and I even said this in episode 6, if you slide into my DMs and you come correct, you're very respectful. Hey, listen, I saw these numbers. I listened to your thoughts. I had some disagreements about this left, right, and center. I kind of want to talk to you about this. Listen, if I'm not working, ladies, I'll entertain that all day. Gentlemen, I'll entertain this all day. However, if you slide into my DMs and going, you're a sexist pig, all the rest of it, and all, yeah, anything you can think of, I'll probably drop out the personal identifying information and I'll probably do my own personal rendition of mean tweets on my show. And I guarantee you, my buddies and I will laugh hysterically at it. So I'm all for civil discourse. Do not come at me sideways. I will treat you with respect. I would just ask that if you're going to have this conversation with me, send me a meme, send me a, finger guns thing, just so I know you're coming in the right way. Please don't be cross. Please don't be pissed, because I tell my guys the exact same thing on my show. I'm like, look, if you're doing this just to sleep around, you're killing your ultimate appreciation of a relationship that you're going to have later on down the road. And what I will firmly plant my flag in the sand on, and I will die on this hill, is I will say this to the gentlemen out there that are not engaging in the hookup culture, and you're like, listen, man, like, I'm starting to date, and in my 21, I've never so much as even kissed a girl. Like, this makes me less of a man. No. Whoever's putting that in your ear, if you have anybody around you that is actually putting that into your ear, you need to cut that mofo out of your life quick, because that is not a determinant of what a real man is. It's not. It comes down to values. Are you getting up and you doing the stuff that you need to do despite how you feel? I don't want to go to work today. Tough. Get up and go do it. I don't want to do legs today. Doesn't matter. Go to the gym. I will always advocate going to the gym. Don't skip leg day. Women notice. So the especially with them calves, man, the most ungrateful muscle group. Oh my gosh. So, but I say all that to say that the hookup culture really comes down to a set of values. And even if these numbers are true, this app will get the reputation that it does because of numbers like this. We will continue to have a hookup culture problem in our culture because of a lack of, how shall we say, proper gatekeeping, I guess.
Yeah,
Could we say?
yeah.
Yeah. So, because here's the thing, and on another channel, I was doing a lot of research for episode 6, and I had this, I came across this one young lady that was like, on average, men are, women are more intelligent than men and everything else. I'm not going to argue that. That's not what I'm here to do. And it was posed to her. And it was almost like a aha, got you moment. I didn't even see it. I almost spit my coffee out. I was like, holy crap, that was brilliant. But the guy goes, well, tell me this. He's like, if you're so damn smart, then why did you get played by the same type of guy like 5 or 6 times in a row? I was like,
Ugh.
ooh, that's rough.
So
That's a tough question. So
I
what do you do?
I want to jump in. I want to jump in on this one point real quick. Just to refer to your
Mhm.
graph we pulled up here. So if
Yeah.
you're looking at these numbers,
Hmm.
and you're saying that mostly women, almost on all of these, they have not had 63%, right?
Hmm.
They have not had a one night stand.
Hmm.
But there's less men who haven't. That kind of will give you another stat
Yeah.
that most there there's a small group of women who are doing this
Hmm.
because all assuming that this is all hetero, I would imagine that
Yep.
a good majority of it is,
Hmm.
and less women have, but you know what I mean. More women had,
Yeah.
so
No,
it's like,
absolutely. That's the right train of thought. That's exactly what that means. That is the inverse logic of that. In the same way that you are probably swiping on the same girl, that same girl is probably hooking up with one of your best friends if both of you have made the cut,
yikes.
which maybe that's a high five, good job, bro moment. I don't know. Whatever, whatever that dynamic is, man. I mean, that's your thing. I'm not going to
I'll
tell you
give
what
you a
to
fun
do.
fact. I'll give you a fun fact. I did an interview with one of the girls that was on the Whatever podcast. I don't
Hmm.
know, you might have saw the clip where she had several partners, right? And
That wasn't that Snorlax chick, was it?
no, her name was Kelsey,
Oh, okay.
and
Okay.
she was on the Whatever podcast. She was saying that she had a crazy amount of bodies, right? And then, the Whatever podcast clipped it up really crazy, and
Hmm.
it showed her how many actual partners that she had. It was quite a
Uh,
bit, right? And she said she got perma banned on Twitter. I mean, not Twitter. I'm sorry, Tinder. Perma banned
Tinder,
on Tinder. Yeah, perma banned.
dude.
So she was hooking up left and right, left and right, left and right. Fortunately, she's turned the corner and she's not really doing that anymore. But we had a great discussion about it and
Oh wow.
why she was doing that. But that's just an example of how one woman could really bump up the numbers by
Hmm.
herself because she would do like more multiples in a day, right?
God. Oh
And
my god.
yeah, yeah,
Girl, get a
yeah. She
hobby.
sometimes she would be double booked, triple
So,
booked,
oh,
whatever,
oh my
and
gosh.
s- that's the only way she would turn some down. It's like, okay, well, all right, I can't have all of you at once. So, but back to back was just fine.
Well, I mean, not with that attitude, but whatever. I mean, just
Yeah. So
get
you just have to understand that that's what you're subjecting yourself to,
yeah.
and when you do get with the female who is willing to hook up, it's not just you. Don't ever think you're special as a dude because whatever she'll do with you, she'll do and most likely has done with several others. So you have to
And
take
in
that
the
into
in
consideration.
yeah, the
Yeah.
inverse of that too, just really quick is, don't forget if you come across a girl that you know that she's got a past like that, and then she turns around and she's like, "Oh, I don't do that." You're like, "With you." That's really the last part of
Yes.
that sentence that she's
Yep.
not saying.
Yep.
And
Yep.
even with and I could get the response. Well, what if she's had a faith based conversion and everything else, and then okay, we're gonna leave that par for the course and that be the outlier to the statistical probability and distribution of the data points, theoretical data points. If she's saying I don't do this, it means I don't do that with you because she doesn't feel comfortable doing that with you. That's what that is. I've had girls say that to me. I've heard girls say it to other people. Like it just that's what it means. One case in point, I had this one young lady who tell me one time, she's like, "Oh, I don't drink." I'm like, "Okay." 3 years later, she starts a tequila company. So I was like, hang on. I'm like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. So, well, I'm sorry to hear she got banned from Tinder. I got banned as well, but not for those
Oh,
reasons.
why?
Oh, you want to hear about this? Okay. So,
He got
one of my,
banned?
I did like, I can never be on Tinder again, ever. for as long as I have my phone anyway, until I actually find a way to skirt their system if I ever need to do more research for my podcast. But yeah, I got banned from Tinder, like straight up. My number is probably blacklisted somewhere. So I don't know. Do you want me to tell that story or not?
Definitely.
Okay, totally. All right. So this is an exclusive right here on your podcast because I haven't told this to anybody before, except
Nice.
like maybe my best friend. Yeah. So
Here
I
we
worked
go.
with this guy.
Let's hear
we're about to
it.
we're about to spill some tea, man. So one of these guys that I worked with, he was notorious for making memes about people, and then we'll say it we'll say trash posting because I don't know what the censor rules on your show are. But so he was a fan of trash posting people. Now again, I'm a little bit of a troll myself. I like a good meme. I'm not a you know I'm cool with it. I can take a joke. I got a good sense of humor, despite the fact that I've just rattled off like a bunch of numbers and I seem like an Excel spreadsheet guy. I do have a sense of humor. Well, one day I saw him send something that I thought he, overstepped the line. And so I, tried to address it with him. I'm like, hey man, I was like, I think you probably stepped over a line on this one. Like, I know you maybe didn't mean to. Probably want to pull this back because like back in my day, he's like, well, I'm gonna do what I want. I was like, well, you can, but the problem is that like back in my day, if you were to do something like this, like we'd be going outside and fighting. But I know that you and I like I would win that because I'm in better shape. I mean, that's not objective. Like I just was. And so I was like, there are better ways to handle this. I can't just haul off and like, throat punch the dude and freaking make an example out of him. Like it just, you can't do it, especially, um, and so it was more of like a code of honor, that thing. And there were better ways to handle the situation. So I got really, really creative and I was like, how do I beat him at his own game? And so I knew he was on Tinder and I randomly Google searched like you know, gorgeous girl with brunette hair and pulled some random stock photo of some girl that like looked the same. And I created a profile where it looked like it was a female's profile. And I purposely set it up so I could swipe through all of these dudes' um profiles just to get to his. So I swiped left on all these dudes' profiles until I got to his. I screenshot his dating profile photos, all the cringy ones too. Like the ones that he's fitting in a shirt that he has no business wearing, like the stupid name he gave himself on his like everything.
No.
I took those over to a meme generating app and I created a meme off of every single one of his dating profile apps. And then the next time he said something smart, I took one of these things out on these templates that I had and I just shot it across. He's like, where did you get that? He had no idea. So I sat on a bulk of that collection. And then I went back in there and I tried to, I was going to catfish him as a joke. And so I went in there to try to start a conversation with him. And when I went to go open up the app, Tinder was like, oh, we need to verify who you are. I was like, oh, this is about to get challenging. Because here we have this, this girl with, luscious brunette hair, and I obviously am losing mine. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna get found out pretty quick. And plus, I have 5 o'clock shadow at 8 o'clock in the morning after shaving not 3 hours before. So ain't no way in hell I'm winning this lie. I was like, but they're gonna find out one way or the other. I'm gonna have fun with it, and honestly, I'm not gonna use this app ever again because I had it long enough to do research on uh yeah, for episode 6 for my podcast and noticed the trends and the similarities and the types of women that were on these apps and how the apps were set up and how the profiles were set up and how they were almost copy paste editions of themselves. So I had nothing else to lose at that point. I was like, I don't care. Kick me off the app. What are you going to do? So I go to verify and they're like, oh, yeah, we need to make sure it's you. Well, I go to take a selfie and send it to them. And usually it'll take you like 30 minutes to get verified or however long with the verification process. No, I was banned in 5 minutes. But I had those memes, man. Let me tell you. So I am banned off of Tinder for life because of a practical joke, and I wanted to be King Petty for the day. So
you might
we're
be able to get back in with a different device probably
I
because
see. I don't know if I want to go back to that dumpster fire, man. Because like the people in Walmart, like that's what Tinder is, but for dating. Like it just it it's not good, man. Like I am always going to advocate using the old ways of actually building confidence and making the approach on women, because quite frankly you have a decreasing number of guys doing that. And fellas, if you get the gumption to go off and do it, I mean, one, it's going to speak to the level of confidence that you have. She's not used to that because no dude is doing that. And so
True.
I think that falls into the category of, what was it Abraham Lincoln said? It was perfect. Winner, winner, poultry dinner. I'm pretty sure that's what it comes down to. Like, dude, you're golden. You're already doing something the majority of guys around her are not doing. You're going to set yourself apart. But it's that confidence thing, man. Like, don't
Yeah.
don't don't
Most of
stick
us
it
don't have
online,
that
man.
confidence. Exactly.
Yeah, you can be getting catfished by some dude who is trying to get back at one of his buddies, and then be like, "Hey, man, listen, this is awkward," and then just send it off. But it's or even worse yet, actually match with a girl and find out she's some like transformer. You get it there, be like,
Yeah,
like if
yeah,
anything, you're
yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, that was 200 pounds ago." You're like, "I'm gonna go ahead and leave that way. You're gonna pay for my drinks. Have a good night." Um, but
That ain't it.
but yeah, that no, that ain't it.
All
So yeah,
right.
this
So,
is really what we're noticing with that.
all right. Do you want to jump over to another one?
Yeah, one last one, because I think we've pretty much just, I mean, it's the end of the article anyway. Let's go
Okay.
ahead and jump over to the business side of things
Is that
real
down some
quick. And
more?
yeah, that's actually on business apps, businessofapps.com.
Oh, the other.
Actually on
Okay, that other website.
yeah,
Gotcha,
the
gotcha,
other
gotcha, gotcha,
yeah, that
gotcha.
was my bad. I didn't properly express that.
No
My
problem. So
apologies.
we're talking about this guy right here, right?
Yep, and this is
Got
actually
it.
a relatively recent article too. So this was, the first one we looked at was in 2022. We can see right
Okay.
there. I'm probably going to butcher this gentleman's name. I do not mean any offense by it. Mansour Iqbal. This was published and was updated August 21st of 2023. So about a month and a couple of days ago. So he goes in and he actually, he breaks it down, what is Tinder and all the rest of it. He does due diligence. But then if we break down to about scroll down a little bit, you should see big, bold, black letters saying Tinder key statistics. Tinder made $1.79 billion
Hold on.
in
Let
revenue.
me catch that. There we go. Got her.
Look at that right there, that top one. Tinder made 1.79 billion revenue in
Yikes.
2022 alone. 8% increase from the prior year. So you made more money now that people were coming out of their homes compared to when they were locked down and they couldn't go off and interact with each other.
Wow. Wow.
Which, quite frankly, I'm surprised the people that were locked indoors were actually using Tinder as much as they were, because I thought just everybody was making banana bread for like
Staying
2 years.
home. Yeah,
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 exactly.
yeah.
Hey, man, air fryers came in clutch during that time, let me tell you. Right. So the second bullet point on that, it said it had 75 million monthly active users and 10.9 million subscribers in 2022. Again, these numbers mirror a trend from the previous articles that we've already looked at. So this is staying consistent, and this will tell you exactly how many people are using these apps. So while it seems like, oh yeah, well this is great because everybody's on there, you're right. A lot of dudes are on there, and probably, you've got a 3-to-1 ratio of dudes to females on these apps. We've just covered that.
Yeah,
60% of Tinder
that's
users
scary.
are under 35. 3/4 of Tinder's users are male,
Yikes.
boys and girls.
Yikes.
May the
Yikes.
odds never be in your favor, because they aren't. So the Tinder overview, if we scroll down just a tad bit more, this actually gets into more of the demographics of the overall business and the revenue over the course of the last several years. This is easily accessible information, by the way. So Tinder revenue, Tinder has generated more revenue every year since Match Group launched as a public company in 2015. It made 1.79 billion in 2022. We just covered that. Its lowest yearly percentage growth. 1.79 billion is a low percentage growth. Are you serious?
Wow.
Contemplate that. What would
Wow.
you
I
do
love
with
the graphs.
1.79 billion? Yeah. What would you do with 1.79 billion?
Everything.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. What is that one Dave Chappelle skit from back in the day where you had it was doing the Marcy's Projects ESPN
Wow.
Dice Championship,
So
and Bill
the,
what was it? Bill
the,
Barr showed up, and he's like, what would you do with all that money if we're rolling 77 sevens in a row? He's
it,
like, I bought my mom a house. He's like, and then I spent the rest on PCP. I was like, yo, that is,
whoa.
oh, yeah, that's a lot of money. God, I miss
Whoa.
Dave Chappelle skits. Anyway, so, but moving on, the annual revenue we can see on the graph underneath that bar graph. This one's a little bit more jarring. Tinder annual revenue from 2015 to 2020, and this is in the millions, multi millions. 2015, 47, and that number just goes up.
Like crazy.
Yeah.
Look at these jumps. Look
Mm-hmm.
at these jumps. Holy smokes.
Mm-hmm.
Year after year.
Yeah. So I think Tinder's broke. I could be wrong, but I think they're short on funds.
So they're,
Yeah.
they're making a lot of money by
Oh yeah, dude, they're making
if
hand over fist over people who are in need of wanting a relationship.
yeah, and
They
not
desire
being
one, and it's
and they're
just they're
not
willing to pay through the nose for it.
and there's
It,
not many companies who could have such a low success rate and stay in business. And I'll
yeah,
definitely this is just
yeah.
a you know what, the one number that I didn't see them post that I would love to,
What's that?
you might even have data on it, is how much money is spent on the gold, the platinum, these premium services, um, men versus women.
Ooh, that is a
Because
good question. I want to say that there
I
was one
really
that
think
actually broke that down.
I really feel like
You
it's
know
it's
what?
mostly men. I really feel like it's mostly men. Because
We're gonna do a
that's a
quick
crazy.
research real quick.
Okay.
Okay. Um, what percentage of guys pay for Tinder? Q. Okay, so this actually takes. Ooh, Tinder statistics by enterprise apps today, and this was published when May 1st of 2023 by Barry Iliad. Enterprise apps today. Um, I didn't send you this obviously because I'm doing this like
Yeah, no, no, no,
organic
no.
search right
Even if we could, I just that's just a quick reference.
now.
I just want to know if you found it that quickly. That's awesome. Even if you could just say it.
Oh snap, brother. There are a lot here. Let me see if I can run through these real quick. 1.5 billion take place on 50% of women and 40% of men want to know if their match has any child before advancing the conversation. That's interesting. I didn't see that one before. Women get more than 7 matches in a single day, while men received around 5 matches. I don't know if that's entirely true or accurate. Thursdays and Sundays are generally flooded with the highest number of active users. Let's see. Participation.
And I would
No.
even if
Oh,
they get nearly as much matches, you have to figure what the man had to go through to get those matches.
oh yeah. Here's one that kind of touches on it. It says 70% of regular conversations that started with super likes are long lasting, and you only get so many of those. Face to face video chat. What is Tinder? This is a lot of the same. General Tinder statistics. 50. I'm gonna look. I'm gonna look this up because this is with the amount of money that they're making on those subscriptions. They have a lot of people that are using the apps for free. We've talked about that. But what's
Yeah,
interesting about the article is with you know what I it's not in this article, but let me do this and correct me if my logic is faulty on this one. If we have a 3-to-1 ratio of men to women on that app, it would stand to reason that just based on numbers alone, men are probably the predominant ones paying for the app
yeah,
services. Because if
but
you think about it, the women have matches coming to them. They don't like they have more than they know what to do with.
yeah,
Like we've seen that.
yeah, and that's kind of why I came up with that theory. I also have anecdotal evidence, right? Because some women
Yeah.
have showed me their results and dating apps, not even just Tinder, but Facebook is a really big one now too. Um, Hundreds of messages. It's impossible for them to even sift through them all. So they could have had perfect matches, and I'm sure they've
Yeah.
overlooked perfect matches all the time. They have to overlook perfect matches. So there really is no need for them to pay, being that they can easily get the results that they want, right? Well, the results they think they want, the results that they're looking for,
Yeah.
right? Uh,
That's a different
so
matter entirely.
men can't. So we would be out of the game if we didn't pay. So
Exactly.
I would venture to say that at least three-quarters of their money is generated by men, just because there's three-quarters of us on there, and
Yeah.
probably even worse because out of that you realize how more picky the women are versus the men, and how much they swipe versus we do, right? So if you're getting nothing, it would encourage you to, like, we're going to use the cheat code at some point.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that's the crazy
I was
part about it.
I just thought of this too. If you really wanted to have like an immediate example of what you're talking about and not even have it be Tinder, because just in case those people out there are like, no, they don't actually get that many matches in one day. Brother, I don't know if you could do it. That video that I sent you the other day where I did that remix of that video that I saw on Instagram, you remember what that notification number was on her Hinge account?
Oh yeah,
1186. And you can
yeah.
see it right there. Like the
It
dude's
was it
filming
was crazy.
and she opens it up. And what does she do? She looks at the first dude. She's like, yeah, okay. Goes directly to her likes, and she's got almost 1,200 of him. It's just like, and she doesn't even look at the dude that matched with her like it was up on her main screen. Like, what do you do with that? There's no way. Like, and I'm serious. If your listeners think I'm joking, they can hunt me down. It's on the page. It's right there, and it's depressing.
Sheesh.
But
Well,
you're right. There's no way she's seeing that.
yeah.
No way.
So, all right, I want to get into. I know you had one more. I know you had one more page that you wanted to
It
visit.
was, yeah, it was actually just the insights of the visualization of the flow chart of what the average communication line looks like for a male user. Now, keep in mind these Tinder insights, you can request this from Tinder if you are a user, and you can actually see what the overall success rate that you may have is, right? So if we go over here to tinderinsights.com, I think I sent you the link of one example that I had pulled out for conversation purposes. And if we scroll down a little bit, so pause right here. We can see that this isn't an a random template that's put together. This is actually data from a real live user. So he's 27 years old, male, right? He's been on Tinder for 177 days. What's that number that he's swiped on? 18,000 plus?
18,000.
All right. So if we scroll down a little bit more, let's go ahead and see how this plays out. All right. So let's
All
pause
right.
right here. Left swipes. So he's swiped left on
11,000.
11,502. Okay. Cool. Cool. That's, I mean, you got standards. We should all have them.
This,
Good.
yeah, this is a little bit more reasonable.
Yeah, this is a little bit more reassuring than the I'm going to swipe on everything that has a pulse. So
Yeah.
we have 670, or excuse me, 6,754 right swipes. So these are women that he probably found attractive. These are women that appeal to him on some level. It may not even be the physical aspect of it. Maybe he actually read the profile and they put something more than the way to win me over is to make me laugh. I don't know. Or that their favorite show was Friends. Maybe there was something about what she wrote that appealed to him. Whatever the case may be, they made the cut. They got swiped right on. And then if we scroll down a little bit more, this is when the fork in the road starts to become a little bit more evident. Actually, real quick, if you could scroll back up, I want to point something out a little bit more thematically entertaining. Right here at the top of this graph. Or, sorry, a little bit.
Oh, the graph right
The
here.
graph. Pause right there. You see how these two lines, you swiped right 18,256.
Mm-hmm.
You notice something interesting about those two lines?
One is I guess has the opacity way down and wider.
Okay, a little bit wider. That's actually wider is right. So when you scroll down just a little bit more to see that first round of numbers after the swipes, check this out. Which one of those is a little bit larger? Is it the left swipes or the right swipes?
The left swipes.
So this is actually exactly. So this graph visually is breaking down how many went to each category based on the width of the pathway, because it's showing you what percentage and how small of a fraction is being peeled off the total sum. So keep that in mind as we go down. So after the 6,754 right swipes, right? So we scroll down a little bit more. Let's go ahead and check that out. Right? Pause right here. 271 matches, 6,483 no matches. Which one of those pathways is bigger?
Oh, the no match. Way bigger.
Exactly. So you see how they visually represented this in this graph to show you, and perfectly well done. I don't know if they did this on purpose or not, but they're showing you that out of that 6,000, there is a small percentage that slipped through and ended up being your match pool. So if we continue to scroll even further down, we'll notice that and this guy actually did pretty well. Out of the 271 matches, 231 of them actually chatted with him. And then 40 just, there's no response. So I mean that's a pretty good ratio for chat ratio to
Oh
matches.
yeah.
So I would stand to guess that our boy had his photos on point. He had some kind of witty, interesting conversation
Bio,
starter.
right?
Gentlemen, I'm going
Yeah.
to give you a free piece of advice too. During my time doing research on this too, I did find something that was very, very interesting in terms of improving the response rate of women on these apps so you don't get ghosted. One of the best things that you could do as a conversation opener starter, or at least a conversation starter, that I found to be every single line. And now I did this on Hinge too, right? So Hinge has this thing because I was doing a cross-platform comparison of the different apps and whatever else, and wanted to see the similarities and posting them up on episode 6. Um, Gentlemen, if you go to send an opening message to a girl and you're not sure what to put, you got one of three things. And it's open-ended question, right? Because they have to respond with more than one or two words, which will help you weed out who's actually interested in talking to you and not, and who can and cannot carry on a conversation. So your first one is this. It's your free chicken. As one of my mentors once said. So the very first thing that you could do is if she have a dog, right? If she have a dog, if it's a golden retriever, German, it doesn't matter. You want to get her talking, talk about her dog. Best opener that I ever saw was I was like, we'd match up, and I immediately I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna level with you. You and your dog and I need to be friends, and then just leave it at that. And then the response that I got from women was usually overwhelmingly pretty positive because they would launch immediately into talking into their dog, as well they should. All of us have been around doggos. I actually kind of judge people like if you're having a conversation with them. And I've been on a date with a girl one time too. When I was talking to her, it was going really well. And there was this golden retriever puppy that came walking by, cute as a button too. He was walking and his tongue was hanging out and he didn't know it was hanging out. And I'm like, oh, you're adorable, bro. So I look over and I'm like, yeah. So anyway, I was telling this guy at work, I was like, oh, he's so good, boy. Look, I just went off on it, right? Like I lost my composure. This dog was cute. And this girl's like, what are you? She looks over the table. She's like, oh my God. In like a high pitched voice, like it almost made my ears bleed. She was stoked. I'm telling you, if she has a dog, she cannot help but talk about it, right? So, open up something like, hey, your dog and I need to be friends. I'd be like, I'm trying to decide who has a bigger smile in this photo, you or the dog, but both look pretty good. Something like that to get them talking, because then when you actually get the conversation flowing, you're not starting off with something cliche like, hey, hi, wow, I like, because you got to think, guys, they're getting bombarded by all of these messages,
Yep.
which is why your photos have to be on point. So from there, the second one that you could do is if she has a series of photos that look like she has traveled a lot, right? Some women, they like to travel solo. They just do. It is what it is. I've met some. Great conversation starter. You get in there, and again, this is if you have to use the apps. This is not meant to be like a pickup thing or a pickup artist or me trying to be a dating coach. That's not what this is. If you're one of those guys where you're like, I don't know what to say, I have social anxieties, so this helps me get my foot in the door and the rest I can take care of it. Cool, man. No harm, no foul. I applaud you for it. So you don't know what to say, ask her something open ended. So you look at her photos and you go, okay, out of all of your photos, which one is your favorite or has the best story behind it? She cannot answer you with one or two words. She has to
Exactly.
start the conversation. She has to engage. The last thing that I got a lot of response for and I even had one girl, she's like, are you going to pay me? I'm like, no.
What?
She goes, yeah, oh, this is good. So I started off and I was like, hey, great profile. So, hey, listen, I'm doing some research for a podcast for my podcast. Or, yeah, no, what did I say on Hinge? I got like almost a 95% response rate off of this, I think. And I sent something out. I was like, hey, great smile. It was like a quick little comment and like, compliment. And I was like, hey, great smile. Anyway, so listen, I'm doing research for my podcast. Was wanting to know if you could help me out with something. And the return value, because women love podcasts. I don't know if we know this, especially crime drama ones, which is really weird.
Yep.
They'll listen to some dude get hacked up for, hours on end and then be like, I can't go to dinner with him. What happens if I end up in his trunk? I'm like, first off, that's a piece of paperwork I have to worry with. And in this climate, no. And I have to go to work tomorrow, so I can't afford to kidnap you. Mainly because my dog's food is in the trunk, and honestly, I'm feeding him before I get to know you. So your ego probably needs to stop writing checks your body can't cash. But that's another matter entirely. So, they love podcasts. So if you offer some kind of return value of like, hey, maybe you can help me settle a debate, get the conversation going off of like a controversial topic, something that you think that she would have a stake in. Ask her something about, hey, I've heard this school is really, really good. A buddy of mine's going there. Do you have any recommendations on what he should check out food wise? Maybe this, that, and the other, because then you're taking something that's important to her and you're relating to it, but then you're also getting her to talk about it in the process and you're starting a conversation. From that, you can peel off, oh, cool. What was your most enjoyable fact about there? Oh, cool. Da, da, da. You get that going a little bit. You want to get them off that app as quickly as you possibly can, but you want to have enough to build rapport. And the best way you could do it is try to set up a call on those apps because the first dates are always awkward. So if you get that phone call, it's a little bit more old school, but you put more of a personal touch to a voiceless message. You put more personality back behind the text. And if you do it well enough, she's going to be able to read when you're putting sarcasm downrange to her, which means she's going to be like, ha, ha, you're so funny. A lot easier. So the point is that you have to be a little bit more creative with it, and you have to risk it for the biscuit in some cases. Women get freaked out, be like, oh my God, he's calling me. Why? Well, it's a phone. Like, they can do that. I don't know if you knew that, but they take phone calls. Just revolutionary idea. So those are probably the three biggest things that I got in terms of responses to actually get women engaging with you. And from that, off the introductory opening line, what you can do is begin to build rapport so that when you guys finally do meet up, you can reference inside jokes or, memes that you've passed or whatever the case may be, and you're getting off that app as quickly as you possibly can. It's a win-win.
Yeah, I definitely agree with getting them off of the app as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I'm,
Yeah.
I'm gonna um I'm gonna jump back into the chart if there's anything else you got on this. You see where
Yeah,
we
no,
are
I
right
just
now.
I just wanted to show the flow of it and how much it siphons off. And when people tell you, well, dating is a numbers game, it is. But the unfortunate side about this is that it shouldn't be. My man went on 7 dates, got one relationship, and had two girls where he was like, eh, you know. But even more stark, real quick, if you notice the chats, you have 231, and then out of those 231, he never met 224 of them. There's your entire pool right there.
Yikes.
It just gone in one stage.
One relationship, zero marriages. Well, hopefully that relationship could turn into a marriage. But you see how it turned. He only met with 7 of them. That's crazy. But then no spark. Wow. Wow.
Which, I mean, if he's being honest about that too, it's like, yeah, I didn't feel a connection. I didn't feel a spark. I didn't feel this. Gentlemen, I will say too, it's completely okay to go into a first date and not have warm fuzzy feelies. Like, give it 2 or 3 because the first date is awkward anyway for both of you. Which, by the way, never do dinner and coffee on a first date unless you know she can carry on a conversation. If you guys are texting organically back and forth, da da da, because the conversation's going that well, then yeah, maybe, right? Maybe. But do something fun, do something interactive, do something you guys both suck at. That way you can sit there and roast the ever living daylights out of each other and have inside memories, jokes, all the rest of it, and build rapport. You get that vulnerable side while still being in public. Take her to go
All
mini
right.
golfing. Take her, something. Don't do dinner and coffee on date one, please, unless you know you can secure the conversation and actually keep her engaged. The food could be good. The interaction's going to be awkward. You don't want that.
Now, I definitely want to get into the fun part because now is the part where we just go on we go on a tangent about how we can actually make this work, right? Like some serious
Mhm.
advice and everything else. But you know what? Before that, I did want to address one thing. So what we'll do, we'll address where not to get your advice from, and then or how not to get your advice, right? And then
Yeah.
we're gonna start going into how we can kind of, really get into what we should be doing.
Yeah.
So most of us have noticed there's been a surge, right, of personalities in the YouTube space, right? Some have great substance, and most don't. A lot of people are in this space or any space just dating coaches in general, and a lot of it is not realistic, and a lot of them don't know it's not realistic, and
Mm.
something that we refer to them as is grifters, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that are out there right now that are just here for the hustle. They want the money, right? And by any means necessary, they don't necessarily care about your well being. They just want the money. And a good way to be able to distinguish some of these folks is they seem to put a paywall in front of everything, right? They'll give you tidbits of what it is that you should know, or they say, oh, well, yeah, join my Patreon where you have to pay. Oh, yeah. See, things like that, or if they're charging you to meet them and stuff like that, that's not always going to be bad, but you should at least question it, okay? Is there advice backed by statistics? Statistics. Is
Yeah.
it backed by data? Is it or is it just something that they're just pulling out of their bunghole, right? Or do they have actual experience? Because a lot of these dudes, I could see through it, but the average person who is seeking help on these videos may not be able to distinguish men who actually get it and men who don't,
Yeah.
right? You can tell, and a lot of these guys don't really have any XP, or maybe they do now because they have grown enough status now that they're in the YouTube space doing great numbers. But in real life, without the fame, without the money, they wouldn't be able to obtain any women at all. So you have to be
Yeah.
very careful as to who you are donating to, right? So,
Yeah.
or just even ingesting content. So the main thing that you want to do is just ask the questions. Do they seem real? Are they interactive with me without uh, these paywalls? Are they genuinely trying to help me as a person? And what I will say is that uh, legitimate content creators do try to reach out to as many people as possible, even if it's not through the YouTube space. Check their Instagram, throw them a DM. See, because
Yeah.
people who really care do go through their DMs. I get plenty of them because my Instagram is really shaken. So I get a lot of DMs, people asking for help, advice, this and that, and I offer it. Right
Well,
at
plus
this
you also
time,
have the name sugar baby sites too. So I mean, I'm sure that helps out.
yeah.
I'm kidding with you.
So yeah, so I definitely try to help people one-on-one basis, even if it's not a lot of time. I at least try to steer you in the right direction. I'll give you a legit paragraph, not a copy paste, right? And I won't talk to you like you're stupid, like you
Yeah.
don't get it, right? You have to have patience to be because you have to understand that although I may have learned, I went through this journey, you went through your journey, right? And you were able to, you're an analysis, right? I mean, analyzer. You everything that you do, you've based on data, and I'm sure you've had some boots on the ground as well, right? So we're all on different journeys, and not every one of us is going to have the same experience, right? We're a little bit older than the average person that's out here looking for it. So of course we have some XP, right? We have some experiences, actual experiences, and we're from the era of the cold approach.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've done the cold approach, and I'll give a little history, right? Because I'm married now. I've been married for 16 years,
Nice.
16, right?
Congrats.
So I haven't always been though. Before marriage, I was out there, so I had a lot of experience, and I grew up in a major city. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey. I live in South Jersey now, which is more like I guess a Philly metro area, Philly suburb. You could still call it because Philly's like
Yeah.
25 minutes away from me. But when I was in Newark, I was 25 minutes away from, if depending on if you obey the traffic laws or not, from New York City, right? So um it's a different experience. There's a bunch more people in major cities. They have access to so many more people, so many different types of people, right? And with that, we're able to have different types of experiences. And the cold approach was okay. I literally did cold approach maybe about, I'd say, a good 10 women a day. No,
Yeah.
no, like, no cap. I was out there. I was doing what to do, and it gave me different experiences. And I'm not saying that you should go out smashing all these women, but you should probably go on dates with some. You should have conversations with as many as possible, right? It's going to, even if you don't start at eights, nines, and tens, sometimes you could start you practice when you're first getting in. It's just like working your ranks up when you're in. If you're a fighter, you'd have to work your ranks up. So you don't just get the championship bout. You start
Yeah.
off, you spar, you spar with people, and you work your way up the rankings. So if you start with threes, fours, fives, that's fine. You don't have to close on them. But what you'll begin to understand is that there are only a few different types of women, right? Once you learn how to be good with there's probably not even more than 5 different types that you need to be familiar with. If you're familiar with the 5 types, right, then you'll be good. There are some things that are universally attractive to women, right? We understand that they love if you have height. Fortunately, I'm like 6'4", so that kind of helped. But
It's
there's
okay. I'll
that.
represent the 5'10" and a half,
But
5'11" gang.
but
So
I'm
I
gonna
got
tell
you
you,
covered on the short 5 dudes.
when I was
By 5'1"
when I
standards
was
anyway, I'm short, but whatever.
when I was younger, like 15, 16, I could not find my way at all. Got
Yeah.
my heart broken twice. I learned to deal with that. But the one thing I didn't do, I didn't go into, what they would describe now as like red pill rage or anything like that. I
Yeah.
analyzed myself because the one thing that I noticed is this isn't happening to everyone. This
Yeah.
is happening to me though. So what is it that I'm doing wrong that I can improve on, right? You have to be able to have self-awareness. If you don't have self-awareness, then your life's gonna suck. I'm sorry. So you get in the gym, make sure you're in shape, right? You can, if you're not tall, you can easily compensate for that by having a great build, by taking care of yourself. Women are going to be attracted to that, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to eliminate all women. There is a good percentage of women that want you to be a certain height, but if you're not, just make sure you're a certain build. You have to learn
Yeah.
how to be fashionable. You have to make sure you know how to dress. Certain things are universally well. Like you can be good almost anywhere you go. There's certain outfits that I put on that I get looks from up to today, even with my 44-year-old self. Um, all ages, right? You see women in their 20s looking, you'll see women in their 60s looking. You'll see, and it depends on how they fit you. Find clothes that complement your figure. Work
Yeah.
on your figure, first of all. Make sure that you are in shape. I'm telling you, hit the gym. Don't skip leg day. Definitely don't skip arm day, right?
Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
that all that's going to help out. You have to be fit. You have to be fit. Make sure you have some type of regimen, hygiene,
Yeah.
right? Whatever suits your face. If you look better with facial hair, do that. If you don't, then don't. Um, Make sure you always have your clean cut. Nearly every woman appreciates that. No woman really wants you to look raggedy. There are some smells that are universally good, right? And you don't have to go expensive. Like a lot of people buy $400 bottles. Oh, I need the Creed. I need it, and that's cool if you can afford that. But if that's not in your budget, guess what? There are designer imposters. You can't patent a fragrance. So you might have to apply
Yeah.
it a few more times a day, that's for sure, but you'll still have a legitimate smell, right? And I say these things just because I want it to be within everyone's reach, right? I want to talk about
Yeah.
things that are universal and practical, so things that you can apply to your life no matter who you are. Smell good. We can all do a good job of smelling. Make sure your hygiene is up.
Yeah.
Keep yourself. Cut your nails. You'd be surprised how many women
For
won't date you
sure.
because you
Oh
have
my
dirty
gosh.
fingernails. People don't
And if you know, you
understand that
know.
you
There's
can't.
a reason for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these are things that most, not most, but a good portion of men and most men that are seeking and having trouble don't know these things, right? They don't know you have to have clean fingernails. They don't like being in shape is very important. You have to find things that complement your figure. Try to get things that are universal. Try to talk to different types of women because it's more important to you what types of women you like, and the more you take care of yourself with at least the things that are universal: dress well, smell well, make sure that you are in shape, right? Build conversations, read as
Yeah.
much as you can. Even if you're not a reading guy, when you have your downtime, when you're cleaning up, hopefully if your
Yeah.
job allows you to just listen, get Audible, right? Get something. And
Yeah. I
Libby is
was gonna
free.
say Audible is
Libby
great.
is free, and Libby is free. So you can go
Yeah.
on Libby. If you have a library card, you put your library card in the app, and you can get those books read to you almost the
Yeah.
same. The quality is a little different, but if you can't afford to pay a subscription for Audible every month, go to Libby. It's free.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's
great.
they have the same books too. A lot of them. Sometimes there's a waiting list, but you just put them all in queue until they're ready.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
there's a way for everybody to be able to do this. Now, if you're more well read or listened, in this case, you're still going to have the information that you have, and your conversations will flow so much better. You'll be able to talk to so many more different types of women that you may have figured were out of your league. Charisma is really up there. A lot of people sleep on charisma, but it's understandable, right? And once you start to build confidence, you'll behave confident. I want you to talk to us a little bit about confidence. Let's go with that, and I'm going to add on to it.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I think the reason why a lot of people don't follow or at least understand the concept of charisma is because they're too busy out here calling it Riz, but that's something else entirely. So um, no, but you hit the nail on the head. It's kind of funny because and again, I don't mean to keep going back to this, but there was a mention that I made in episode 6 concerning one of the biggest turnoffs in women, and it was being bored. And I said, look, from my experience, from what I've seen and from what I've heard, and now from what I've read in some of the anecdotal research that I've done for this episode, you can do almost anything to women except bore them. I mean, there are
Yeah.
two obvious
Ooh, that's
reasons.
bar. That's bars right there. That's bars. That's bars.
Because, and here's the thing: is that it's one of these things that there's a reason why they are attracted to certain specialties. There is a reason why they are attracted to certain jobs and certain titles. One of the articles that I came across for that episode was it had basically stated, and I don't remember the numbers on this, and if you guys really want me to look it up, I can, but one of the biggest jobs that caught a woman's eye was if the guy was a pilot. Obviously, I mean, for obvious reasons, because there's adventure, there's intrigue, there's skill set, there's a demand for it right now, right? So there's a sense of adventure in there, and they're like, oh yeah, you can take me anywhere in the world, you can travel and da da da, but when I do it, all of a sudden, no, it's too much work. Yeah, okay, whatever. But so jokes aside, the confidence aspect is multifaceted. I found because I I think to a degree, much like you were saying, you can have you can have certain physical characteristics in place, but then still fumble the bag when it comes to actually having a conversation with a woman. And unfortunately, while you can be naturally gifted with the ability to be outgoing, talk to people naturally, and do all the rest of it, you can still fall short because of a pretty face. Like, guys, it happens to the best of us. Like, I'm going to be real with you. I would like to believe that I'm well spoken and I can carry on a conversation fairly well. Gentlemen, I'm going to tell you right now, there's at least a couple of times I can think of off the top of my head in recent years, in the last 2 or 3, where I forgot what language was my native tongue because of how beautiful I thought this woman was. Now it lasted for about 3 seconds, and then I said something smart, which she didn't really find funny. So I mean, my jokes are kind of dad jokes without me actually being a dad. So I mean, it's just can't hit or miss. I want a guy who does dad jokes. Okay, and then you do it, and then they're like, "Oh no, maybe not those." And you're like, "Oh, okay." So you got to specify it. But no, okay. So getting back to the core of how you develop confidence. Now, what I started off was, or what I started to drive at was when I was younger, I used to be able to start a conversation with anybody. I still can. That's actually one of my greatest strengths is I can just jump in there and just go. And I think having the upbringing that I did, because both of my parents were in healthcare, and I spent my entire childhood watching my dad be a public servant for healthcare to his community, and I saw the way he interacted with people. I saw the way he cared for anybody that walked in the door, and that was something that kind of rubbed off on me. But also, I listened to the way that he interacted with his patients and how he related to them on a personal level. Now you're sitting there going, "Well, Brandon, what does that have to do with dating?" Here's the biggest thing: if you want to be engaging and you want to be captivating, especially when you're trying to actually lock down a woman's attention on a date, because we all know the first date can be absolutely horrendous when it comes to it being awkward. And you want to avoid that because it could be a pleasant time. You could be an absolute gentleman. You could do all the right things. You could say all the right things. But if that awkwardness remains in the atmosphere during the date, she is going to walk away with a stronger indication of how she felt about the entire interaction as opposed to her individual interaction with you. That feeling of awkwardness is going to override the impression that you were attempting to leave. And unfortunately, what sometimes happens is women will talk to their friends probably over brunch or whatever the case may be. Oh, hey, girl, how'd the date go? This, that, and the other. Oh, yeah, he was great. He was this, but it was just kind of awkward. Now, I've heard women actually talk their girlfriends down and go, hey, girl, go out with him again. Did you have fun? Was he nice? Yeah, he was a gentleman. Go out with him again. First dates are always awkward. If any one of your listeners, ladies, if you're out there and you're actually doing that for your girlfriends, kudos to you. Seriously, you are one of the rare ones, and I would tell you continue to do that. Guys, the reason why it's important to actually figure out a way to develop communication, develop the ability to be engaging is because they want to be entertained. Straight up. We've all seen the
Yep.
movie Gladiator. You get to a certain point where you're just frustrated, and Russell Crowe's like, "Are you not entertained?" Like, exactly. Is this not why you are here? And I God, I love that movie, Dan. I really do. It's one of my favorites. But no, so one of the things is I also found a a qualitative report or a qualitative survey when I was doing the research for episode 6 on my podcast. And one of the things that this young lady had told the researchers was I like a guy who can teach me something about the world I live in. I like a guy who can teach me something new that can excite my imagination, that I can do, something. There's a reason why 50 Shades of Grey did as well as it did in literary sales. I mean, yeah, I've heard excerpts of the book. It's written poorly, but then again, I mean, I grew up reading Tolkien and Shakespeare and classic literature. So
Oh
like
yeah,
my
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
like my
yeah, yeah, yeah,
expectations
yeah.
of how you're going to draw me into a world
They set
are
the
like
bar high
way up
for
here.
you. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So
but
like when you have the author of 50 Shades come in and be like, he smelled like musk or something. I'm like, what do you mean or something? What the hell is that? But like, okay, whatever. But you do that because if you can eloquently and you can verbally paint a picture and excite a woman's imagination and draw her into what you're talking about, she is going to learn more from that interaction because of the way you captivated her. It was exciting.
yep.
She didn't know what was coming next. It was this, it was that. Even better still, if you have some kind of expertise or you have a knowledge set in something, what I have found is that most women, when they say, I want a guy who's passionate about something, what they're talking about is they want you to be able to express that passion to them in such a way that gets them excited about it. But if you get down to like the finite details of, let's say, the intricacies of your fandom, whether that be, we'll use common ones, right? Marvel, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. Okay, that third one's biased, but whatever. So the thing about it is that if you get down to that level, it shows her that you have a passion for something outside of just getting up, going to bed, going to work, making money, and going home. You actually research the things you're passionate about. You know why you're passionate about the things you're passionate about. And when she starts to bond with you, what's going to happen is that because she knows that it brings that much fulfillment in life, in a healthy, well structured relationship, she is by proxy going to then adopt that interest in that thing because, well, you're interested in it and it brings him a lot of joy. He smiles bigger with this thing than sometimes he does with me, but I know that's not more on me. What the hell is this thing? I got to go learn more about this. See, now it's a new adventure that you both get to do. Now, inversely, you might have to get prepped for painting with a twist. So, gentlemen, if your painting skills suck, I would recommend going to YouTube, looking up a legend called Bob Ross, and then showing up and being like, "Oh yeah, we're just gonna do some
Yeah,
head painting
that's the
trees."
man. That's the
That's bro. I'm telling you,
man.
how many solid naps I have taken after school because I started watching a painting and then was like, "Oh yeah, man, he's really painting like trees and mountains and just out, dude." It is what it is. So one of the studies had also stated that the reason why, or this one woman had reported, she's like, if you can teach me something about an aspect of life I don't know, when you explain something at such a finite level and a technical level, I have been on numerous dates where I've had women ask me what my thesis project was for graduate school for my master's thesis. They're like, "Yeah, I want explain your psychophysiology research to me." They don't care about that. They don't care that I 7 years before the COVID outbreak, I looked at what would happen on a small level for human behavior when taking preventative measures for a global pandemic. They didn't care. They didn't care about the numbers. They didn't care about the stimuli that I crafted. They didn't care about the number of participants. They didn't care about the shortcomings of my studies. They didn't care about any of that. Consistently, what women reported me or reported back to me as being attracted to was the fact that I displayed a level of mastery and expertise in something that was so technical that it was attractive. And one of them was like, I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't know that. And I've never been turned on by a research principle in my life. It's
Now,
intelligence. It's just, it
I
is what
have
it is.
to I have to interject with this one. Um it has to be a certain type of female, right?
Yes.
That you're talking
Yes.
about.
That is
And
too.
these are the keepers now. These are the keepers. So, you know, depending on what it is you're trying to do in a date, if you are looking for long term, then certainly with this, that would definitely help. Um, but I do want to get into another part of it, right? Just the interaction, right,
Yes.
with females. I want to talk about, um, you know, when you're having your conversations, don't talk too much about yourself. For one,
Exactly.
women love talking, hoping that you listen, right? If now most of your talking should be about the subject matter that she's talking about. Don't make it too much about yourself. For one, women love a mystery, so the less they know about you, the better. But you do so don't offer any information that isn't requested. But if they do
Mhm.
request it and it's something you're comfortable explaining, then you go ahead and do it. But don't go into more detailed is necessary. Let the woman talk because that's going to do two things. She's going to love talking way more than she's going to love listening. As much as women say they are good listeners, no, that's
The
no.
lie detector test determined that was a lie.
No,
Facts.
they love to talk. So when you talk to her about her situation, right? This is where you would take what Brandon's saying right now and say, okay, yeah, I know a little bit about that with this and this, and you could give them explanations about things that they are dealing with. They're going to love it, right? They're going to love it, and just being with a female, I want to get into this how to behave, right? Behaviors. So smiling is one thing, right? A lot of people try to be like, oh, I want, you know, I don't want to look, you know, weird or anything. No, women love a good smile. So if you have good teeth, smile a lot. If you don't,
Yeah.
don't.
Exactly.
But you know, do whatever you can to maintain your teeth because women are really attracted to teeth. People don't understand how important that is too. And the main thing is you want to build the level of attraction. You want her to be attracted to you, particularly on the first date. Most people lose because the women aren't attracted to him, and you have to do things that will build your level of attraction. So smiling is good. It's good to smile. Show your teeth if you have decent teeth. Show them. Um, and touching. People don't often talk about this touching.
Yeah,
Now I'm
that's
going
an
to
art form.
explain this like a kid. There's good touches and then there's bad touches, right? So if you want an excuse to touch her,
I'm sorry. I just thought of I just thought of what was that band? It was the Bloodhound Gang. The the song was called Bad Touch, and it was that song. If you didn't know the title, I guarantee you've heard it. It's "You and Me, Baby, Ain't Nothing But Mammals." So anyway, it's that song. It's literally
Gotcha.
called Bad Touch. So you went off on that, and I was just like, it went from there to stop, don't touch me there. That is my no square. I was like, oh my god. So like I'm missing coffee right
Yeah.
now. So my brain's at
Yeah,
like
yeah.
ADD.
So
Now
so
that's
so what you can
hilarious.
do, the first touch you can kind of do when she's let's say you've arrived at your destination, you can open the door, and a good female will appreciate that, right? And
Yeah,
extend your hand to help her out, particularly if you're a guy like me who drives sports cars that are rather low. Put your hand out, pull her out gently, right? There you go. So
uh,
you got one touch with her hand, and then you can put your other one on her shoulder, pull her in. Okay, got you. You good? Boom, close the door. That's a touch. That actually stimulates women, and a lot of people don't understand that. When you're opening a door for her, touch the small over her back. Hopefully, it's not like a giant
exactly.
coat she's wearing
Yeah,
or something, but that touch right there will actually help. Just little things like that, because
yeah,
that touch. There's literally electricity flowing through both of you, right? You make a connection by touching. Like, she's going to be stimulated, that you're not afraid. But like I said, it has to be good touches. Don't go crazy, but the ones that I've explained specifically
yeah,
are certainly acceptable, right? Shoulders,
yeah,
arms, hands, that's cool. Stay away from the lower region altogether, right? And people are pretty touchy about faces, so you don't
yeah,
you don't want to do that like on the first date. That's like way down the line, you know what I mean? But and that's also another indicator. If she likes you, a woman will touch you more. Like, she'll lean on you
yes,
and give you one of these and stuff.
yes,
That's how you can tell, right? So touching is very important, and it's okay on the first date if you do what I'm talking about specifically. They're not going to be completely creeped out, right? And don't let there be a lot of moments of silence, right? That's you don't want that. You always want to be able to talk about something, and that's why I say being
yeah,
well read, listening, and just talking to people. So the easiest thing to do, I got to get back to this for a second, where it's like
yeah, for
you
sure.
start with the females who are like threes, fours, and five, because their thresholds are going to be a little bit better than you trying to talk to someone who's like seven, eights, because they want to be
Yeah,
impressed. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
you get your game up by talking to some of those who may not get as much action, because their expectations generally, right? Not always, but generally
mhm,
won't be as high. So
yeah,
you practice with that. Your conversation is going to build, just because you'll know what women respond to. And you have to expect to bomb out sometimes, and you can't get discouraged by it,
yeah,
right? You're
yeah,
going to
yes,
get bombed out. It is what it is. There's nothing that you can do about that. Some women are going to, gravitate to you. Some women will just be repulsed by you, right? But hopefully they're not repulsed by you. So
yeah,
practice, and more practice. You're going to get better and better at it, but you have to start somewhere, and you can't be afraid, right? You'll learn a little bit more. It's a trial and error. That's where I've learned most
mhm,
of my information that I was able to apply during my entire dating period, where I knew how to talk to them because I always did. And it's okay to have friends as well. I know there are some men, particularly in the red pill space, that say it's useless to have females, but most of the data that I've comprised and my understanding of women, half of that data is from women, the talking to women who don't have any romantic interest in me, and vice versa. And there'll be a lot more forthcoming. So it's great to have friends that you can just
yeah.
talk to. Don't ask them for advice, because women generally give horrible advice for other women, really,
Oh yeah.
generally, right? So
God forbid they're going to each other for advice on like I've watched women sabotage each other in relationships. It's bad, especially if one's in a healthy one. Oh, forget about it. It's not a
yeah.
thing. Like it no. No, no, no.
Yeah, but the information that you'll get from women that'll be useful is you let them talk about their relationships, because they will gladly inform you on everything that they hate about this guy, what he doesn't do right, what he does, and that's how you'll know how to interact with women, because
Yeah.
not what they ask you, because women generally don't ask you or tell you, what it is that they want, but when you listen to them vent about their current relationship, then you'll know what's driving them crazy,
Yeah.
good and bad. That's the way to go about it. I want you to add to that a bit from your perspective.
Yeah, so there's, and I could talk for hours on this topic too, because it's a crucial one, especially with the touching aspect. You said that it's a subtle nod and it's a subtle playful connection meant to really build that bond from date one, and it's actually a technique that is meant to help her feel more comfortable in your presence. I forget the neurochemical that's supposed to be released during that. I want to say
Is it oxytocin?
I was going to say it's oxytocin. If not that, it's serotonin, because the oxytocin is also it's a chemical that's released um, during the mating process, and it's actually, if I'm not mistaken on this, there are probably neuroscientists out there that would like just decimate me if I get this wrong, but there's a pair bonding process that happens after intimacy, and that neurotoxin, if it isn't oxytocin, it is something very very similar to that helps build that bond and her level of comfort with you. One of the things that is incredibly subtle is that, let's say you're leaning in to make a joke or whatever, conversation's going well, and she's still kind of shy, but she's warming up to you. What you could do, and I've done this before, when you have to be able to read the room too. You have to be able to read her body
Yeah,
language. Like it's
yeah,
not, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, because what ultimately will be perceived as creepy by a woman, unfortunately, is whether or not she finds you attractive. If she does, she's going to give you a little bit more leeway. And if she doesn't, she's on the edge where she has
yes.
to warm up to
That
you.
is
You're going the opposite direction.
absolutely true.
So if you go
Absolutely
to,
true.
if you go to, let's say, have a conversation with her, one of the natural ways that this can progress, there are pickup artists and there are dating coaches out there that will say, oh yeah, this one mind trick will easily make her melt. No, screw that. What I am going to tell you is that what I have found to be successful, or at least build that bond and let them know, hey, this guy's on my side, I'm not going to end up in his trunk dead, is you have to pick that moment when you do the subtle implementation of that minor touch. So what I mean by that is let's say you're sitting at excuse me, you're sitting at a bar, you're sitting at a table, you're doing whatever, maybe you're standing in line, you're people watching, you're making some joke about them, whatever the case may be, and you go to say something quick-witted and funny, and to help her understand when you're joking and lay down that rapport, what you could do is when you go to say, um, okay, case in point, let's say you're at a coffee shop, right? And there is something on the menu called a London fog. And you try to be funny with the dad joke, and you go, you tap her on the arm at the back of your finger, and you're just like, it's like, hey, how can you drink a London fog? Like it's fog. It's not coffee. Like make a stupid joke like that where she just kind of looks at you and she's like, okay, come on. But it's that subtle thing of, I don't have some random chick I can just like pull in here and be like, here, come here, demonstration purpose. So somebody using my mic. It's just as simple as like, if you're standing up, you're like, hey, like, get a load of this guy. Or, what we could do. And then it's something simple as that. Or a little bit more of a light touch on the back of the arm when you're making a point, or when you're asking her a question of preference. Maybe there was something that the bartender said or the waiter said or whoever that she didn't hear, and you're worried about that. You take that initiative and you could turn and be like, again, fingertips, it doesn't need to be beyond, like, I'd say probably like the first knuckle. You just reach back and you tap her on the back of the arm and be like, hey, did you, near the elbow too, like, so like right around here, because at least that way you're still getting that contact. It's non-threatening. You're getting your attention. You're being polite, you're being gentlemanly, as well as being respectful in that first interaction, until you get that rapport built up beyond the first date. Now at this point in time, this should not be the only thing that you're actually relying on, because you need to be more well-rounded. This is when asking her questions becomes important, peeling away the things that make her day unique, peeling away the things that make her her. Because at the end of it, if she does the majority of the talking, as you said, Smoove, she's going to go back and she's going to tell her friends, yeah, he was really interesting. Well, why was he interesting? Because you kept asking questions about her. You're interesting because she got to tell you about her. You were interesting because you engaged the conversation with her. And that subtle little tap, everything that you do, from, again, helping her out of the car, you get the one hand, you help her up with, one hand, and then you do, the gentlemanly, thing where you just across the small of the back to guide her up the curb just in case. You close the door, whatever the case may be. You're standing in line, it's noisy. She may not hear, hey, did you see? Because then, or make a point. And then what you're going to notice is that if that connection is there, especially during those lull periods in conversation in dinner or whatever you guys are having, if there does have to be don't be afraid of silence, right? You're absolutely right. Don't have long periods of stretched out silence, but be tactical with those silences. So when something happens, like shoot her some kind of look, like where you start building up that nonverbal communication, that nonverbal connection with her. So you can kind of gauge what the baseline for that is. Because then you could look at it, you both see something and you both look at each other and you're like, she's like, that sounds really good. Like maybe it's a cupcake in the window or something at a coffee shop, whatever the case may be. You guys are thinking the same thing. So then as the night goes on, what you'll notice is that her body language, she goes from, if you guys are at a bar, she goes from sitting with her knees and her shoulders facing the bar to maybe she'll start to turn. And then as you guys build that nonverbal connection along with that playful banter, that genuine conversation, that occasional playful touch to build that connection, what you're going to find is that her body language is going to switch facing you directly. So you have that non-physical confirmation that she's picking up what you're putting down. And
Yep.
you're right. It's a numbers game. There's going to be stuff. Look, I have said stuff to women that I look back on it now and I'm like, that was bold, but I know I needed it to be bold because I needed to step out of a comfort zone. But it was also cringy as hell. Like, I'm going to be absolutely honest with you. And sometimes, you know, back then, the worst she could say is no. Now, if you're a woman that's not trying to, pull a fast one and get a guy in trouble with the law just because you didn't like him, which that's actually based off of a real reported case, which is unfortunate. Um, One of the things that I would say, guys, is you have to be able to laugh at yourself. Because if the best thing you can come up with to say is, let's say it's, well, winter is fast approaching. No doubt it's pumpkin spice season back home.
Hmm.
So, because I'm in Korea on business right now, so like I kind of miss home, but I understand it's pumpkin season. Um,
It is.
so yeah, so maybe she's wearing UGG boots or something like this, and you pull her aside and you're like, oh yeah, like what was that I said to this one girl in college in an elevator? I was trying to break the ice because I thought she was like really, really cute, and I was kind of nervous around her. And I remember looking down, and I was like, "Oh, that's what it was." I was like, "Oh yeah, those UGG boots look really fancy." I was like, "I don't know if I'd wear them personally. I don't think, I was like, "I
Yeah,
don't
and
know."
you could do that.
Yeah,
There
stuff like that. Like I didn't secure the bag, I didn't secure the number, but it was like, sometimes you're gonna have stuff that like just knocks it out of the park, and then other times you're just like, and then but you got to treat both of those instances as opportunities to get over that initial fear of, oh my god, pretty girl, what do I do, what do I do, what do I do? Well, first thing you need to do is you need to pick up the book called Everybody Poops and understand she's on the same level as you. So like that should take some of the anxiety away from it right then and there. But it's a numbers game, and you got to get yourself out of that comfort zone. That's the only way you're going to do it. Nobody's going to pay to. You can't buy a course to learn confidence. That's the biggest indicator. If somebody's trying to
Yeah.
sell you that, you're like, oh yeah, you take my class, and you could be surrounded by all these, and dude, fine, cool. Tell you what, if we have all these classes that do this, here's my question to this: why don't we have more success stories? Why is it anytime opposition is
Yeah.
actually brought to these guys, it's shaming tactics of, oh yeah, well look at my page, bro. Like I'm hanging around more beautiful women than you, and you're just jealous because you couldn't afford my class, bro. Those are the same shaming tactics that I hear women drop on men when they get an ego high off of crushing a dude. So
Yeah, and that's a crazy thing too. So
it, uh,
so
oh my,
this what I wanted to jump into. Um, Most men who are successful at dating
mhm.
have a strategy, right? And a lot of things that we talked about is a strategy. Women don't have a strategy, really. The only thing that they're strategic about is one, making sure they can get home in one piece because they, have a natural fear against, the creeps and everything. But
Yeah.
one of their best strategies though is being observant, right, of you. They are all over it, right? You might be just there trying to have fun, see if you get lucky tonight or where's this going, but they are being strategic about that part. So they'll observe the hell out of you. They will look at you like one thing that just when women look at you straight up, a lot of times what they do is they start with your feet. Most women start with your feet. So if you're going to spend money on an outfit or anything, make sure you did it in the shoes. Because women do check to see, even if they're not expensive, just make sure they're good and coordinated with your outfit, right?
Yep.
Women are going to pay attention to your body language. They're going to check to see if you're nervous, right? If you're used to being around women, because women don't want men who don't attract other women. That's
Yeah.
just honest. And they're going to feel like you don't attract
Precisely.
other women, even if you didn't have a bunch of women. If you don't, they're going to at least want to know that you are able to obtain a lot of women. So whether it's your look, whether it's your confidence is definitely going to. So I'm glad you mentioned confidence because that's a very big part of it, right?
Yeah.
A very big part of it. So there's so many things that women are observing about you that you just have to understand that you are pretty much auditioning, right, for this one because in all honesty, women have so many more choices for whatever reason. We know we went over the reasons. There's a bunch of reasons why. Even though there's more of like seriously, it I'm appalled by how bad this is actually going for men. That's why, we're taking our time to actually help you get these strategies. You have to be strategic about it because women don't have to be. They're just their strategy is just to make sure that you are what they want. And then your strategy has to be you are what they want, which is
Yeah.
crazy, right? Particularly on the first dates, because most men aren't able to attract women like that. We talked about the bell curve, and we understand that there's a small percentage of men that get most of the opportunities because women like things that are universal. So it's your job as a man to do have as many attributes that the woman universally like, and you'll do better with most. So,
I
but
I did want to add on to that real quick. I'm sorry to
go ahead.
interrupt. The comment of being able to um do the most. I want to make a really important distinction because oftentimes what I also noticed in this conversation was and not here, but like across the spectrum of this thing the folks call the manosphere is that there is this lack of distinction between having resources and being resourceful. So it's a different characteristic. So you can have a guy who and I've used to work with guys that, are like this. They have six figures, they're making six figures a year, all the rest of it. They're checking off all the boxes and they are terrible with financial decisions.
Yep.
And they don't have a way to manage what's been given to them. And then you have someone who's making a fraction, maybe a third of what they are, but they know how to manage it much more efficiently than the guy who has three times what they're making. And in fact, what you might see in some cases is the guy who's making a third of that understands how to make that money work more efficiently for him. So there is a key distinction that you also need to pay attention to as guys. We need to make sure that yes, we have resources, but we are also resourceful as well and being good stewards of the small things that we can later be given responsibility and trust for the larger things. So, you just have to be mindful of that going forward, I think, too.
Excellent. So, We're going to end up wrapping, but before we do, I'm going to put the links in the description. But to anybody who's just listening right now, I want you to um, just let us know anything that you're working on, where they could find you individually, and what's the best way to contact you if they had any questions or wanted anything, any of the subject matter that we went over today. If they would like to have access to
Mhm.
an more in-depth conversation. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
let us know what we got.
So I first of all, my Patreon. I'm kidding. I don't have a Patreon. No, I can be found I can be found on Instagram at uh, there's two pages. You have my personal page, which is just Early Insight Host, which is the name of the podcast, and then the Early Insight Podcast, which has more of announcements on when the show releases new episodes. It's usually just the episode card of quick, like, what to find on where you can go to find it on Spotify, what it's called, and then a quick synopsis, a little description of what we're going to be talking about that specific day. um so yeah, I'm primarily active on that, as well as Early Insight Hosts on my main Instagram page. If you guys have any questions about any of the source material, or you want to see perhaps where I got some of these articles, if you want to go off and do your own research, definitely you're more than welcome to hit me up. I'll send you what links I can and facilitate any conversation I can with you guys. Up on the horizon, I just started season 2 of the Early Insight, and it's funny because prior to this interview, I was actually doing an interview with a guy I used to work with, and we were discussing the topic of failure and how to overcome the obstacles of failure. That's something that's not really being talked about, or we're seeing that it's not really being discussed and taught to young men how to overcome failure and how to develop the characteristic of long suffering and perseverance to try through those difficult times to make it to greener pastures, or develop that strength of character to carry on for greater challenges ahead. So I've got an entire episode list that I'm going to be going through, and I'm going to be working on that. I do have an episode coming up where it is going to be an analysis of the red pill community, because there are some things that I remember first discovering with the community, and then there are things that I philosophically would and respectfully warn young men against falling into, because there is an informative side of that community, and then there is a dark, brooding side of that community from what I've seen. And you got to be very, very careful. I'm going to be doing. I actually had a mom, a daughter, and a son. Funny enough, who listened to my show, that requested that I do a episode analysis on Andrew Tate and kind of my 2 cents on that whole debacle. So that's coming down the pipeline, and yeah, some other stuff, work related projects. Can't really go into too much on those, but yeah, as far as side projects go, the biggest one's going to be the podcast, and setting up more interviews from that, learning more about the craft, and I'm currently working on a business plan for some stuff. So when I get back home to the States, I can kind of launch that and kind of give back to my community a little bit more. So I'm excited.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. This is awesome stuff we got here. So what I want everybody to do, definitely check him out. I'm gonna have all his links available in the description, like I said. So definitely check him out. He's just getting to the tip of the iceberg right here. I'm sure there's so much more that you could learn from this gentleman here for sure. So definitely definitely check out Brandon. You won't regret it. This has been an awesome conversation, hopefully insightful, educational, and mildly entertaining. So
Yeah.
here's what we have. I know you people have made it this far in the video, so you're still watching me, right? If you have, please do drop a like if you haven't already. Absolutely positively share this with anyone who you think may find value in this conversation for sure. And subscribe to the channel, subscribe to mine. I will also have Brandon's information so you can go to his channel, subscribe, whether it be the podcast, the YouTube, or whatever. It'll all be available in the description as well. And as always, stay hungry, my friends. Never thirsty.
You know that ain't my style.